This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radio detectives. We are up to 920 plus friends. It'd be great to get to 1,000 before October 12th, which is the third anniversary of our pilot broadcast, or even till on October 26th, which is, or I should say, the second anniversary of our launch of the show. Well, I want to begin by thanking those who supported our listener support campaign. Had quite a few that have come in. And so we want to thank Lise, who sends along a donation and says, listener donations are a great idea. I'm a regular contributor to NPR, especially since they lost public funding. I found your podcast the first week you started and have listened and donated ever since. Hearing you say Poirot perfectly the other day reminded me to send you the correct pronunciation of chutzpah. It is chutzpah. The CH is pronounced like the H, and I know I've probably said chutzpah a few times. Now you can speak Yiddish as well as you speak French. Thanks so much, Lise, and chutzpah. I definitely knew I needed to learn how to say Poirot right, because we were going to do that show. Thank you for the remark. Listener coaching does work. It also sends along a listener donation. So does Tom, Colin, and Colin writes, stumbled onto your website a week ago and I feel the need to tip my hat. Your site sets itself apart by making OTR shows feel like shows and not just files downloaded from some random database. Keep up the great work and I'll be tuning in. Thanks so much, Colin. Definitely a fact we have gone for here. Andrew sends a donation. Says, love the shows and request the Father Brown mysteries. We'll be sending those along. And lastly, Francis sends along a donation and request Perry Mason and the Case of the Velvet Claws. I love your podcast and commentary. Keep them coming. Well, thank you so much for your support. And now it's time for today's episode of Barrie Craig. And this is one of my personal favorites. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. The title is A Very Odd Job.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
The trouble with murder as a business is that very few of the men who take it up have any judgment. Sooner or later, they run it right into the ground.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. With the weather what it is, a smart operator would be spending his evenings indoors, parked near the steam heat, with a glass in his hand and a small warm glow in the region of his lower chest. I guess I don't qualify. I still like to take walks. Around about this time of the night, there's not much on the street. The air's cold and clean. It's nice to find out you have a pair of lungs which can use that air.
Hey, you!
Me?
Hold it, huh?
Oh, what?
The lippy type, huh?
No, just not quick, that's all.
You're Craig.
That's more or less what I answer to.
I got a job for you.
I'd better make a note of it.
What the devil you took?
How often does a job come running after a man?
I'd save the conversation for a friend, Craig. You would like to make a couple of hundred easy?
Me and most of the adult male population of the United States.
Take this.
This? A small puppet. Come to think of it, are there any big puppets?
You deliver that, that's all. 200.
I deliver it to who?
The name is Ann Kelly.
She wants a puppet?
She'll be very happy to get that one, see?
Not exactly, but there are lots of Kellys in the phone book.
And this time of night she'll be at Easy's open house. It's a clip joint over in the East 80s.
She helps Easy keep the house open?
She helps him keep it filled.
What does she use, a hook?
You catch her routine, you'll be able to add it up for yourself.
That's in addition to the 200?
Yeah.
I don't see the 200 yet.
It's on your office desk.
It's going to get awful dusty. You know, the last time I looked, I didn't notice any money on that desk.
It's there now. But don't try to collect it, see? Not till after you deliver the puppet.
Makes a kind of sense. Do I give Miss Kelly your regards along with the puppet?
Do you know whose regards to give her?
No.
Well, then you better skip it. Now, you can make the joint in maybe 15 minutes. I wouldn't be happy about you dragging it out.
Craig always keeps his clients happy. I'll get it to her in 15 minutes.
So long. I wouldn't bother remembering the license plates.
You wouldn't?
No, they don't belong to the car.
Well, that's so.
Even more than that.
Yeah?
The car don't belong to me.
I didn't bother about the license plates. I always believe a client, even if he happens to be a mug. This one was. But he wasn't a liar. Easy's open house was over in the East 80s, and it was open. Ann Kelly wasn't at the moment helping keep the house open. I ducked a head waiter and headed for the dressing room. One of the advantages of being a confidential investigator, you always know where the back rooms are, if you can call it an advantage. One of the doors had a gray slip of paper glued to it. The name on the paper was Ann Kelly. I didn't have to think about it much. The slip of paper had started out in life nice and white.
Practicing how to be a drummer, boy?
That, I decided, was an invitation to come in. Ann Kelly had started out in life nice and clean. We all do. In her case, she'd held on to a little of that niceness, cleanness. A little.
What happened to you? You lost your table or something?
No.
I'm on display out on the floor, not back here, mister.
My name's Barrie Craig.
Well, that's a very fine name. I'll write home and tell Mother all about it.
You're Ann Kelly.
I'm not the King of France, but I guess you could tell that.
They haven't got a king in France.
Oh,
I'm here on a job.
Really?
It's an odd kind of job.
You want to cry on my shoulder about it?
It's a nice shoulder, but offhand there wouldn't seem to be anything wrong with the job.
Then why don't you do it?
Yeah. It's in my pocket here.
Your job?
The most important part of it. I was instructed to deliver it to you. This.
That's...
A puppet. Here.
Oh, no. No.
Miss Kelly! My client had said Ann Kelly would be very happy to get the puppet. He was wrong. Unless every time Ann Kelly got happy, she passed out. Miss Kelly. Miss Kelly.
Kelly, you're on. Kelly. I don't like to be nasty, Kelly, but the customers are impatient. Oh.
She fainted.
Really, sir, you shouldn't. I mean, after all.
I didn't.
Oh.
You Easy?
I beg your pardon. You meant, am I Mr. Easy?
That's what I meant.
Well, I'm so sorry. I'm not. I'm Osborne.
No, don't fret about it. Where can I find Easy?
Oh, his office is down the hall. Oh, what a delightful puppet. You must have dropped it?
No.
Well, I mean, is it yours?
No.
Well, it must be Kelly's then. Fancy.
I'm too busy right now. Better hang around until she comes to, huh?
Well, I suppose I must.
Yeah. I didn't spend any time thinking. I hadn't anything to think about. The hallway back at the club was a carbon copy of the mall. Shabby, the walls greasy with ancient dirt. The light bulb overhead not putting up much of a fight. Easy's office wasn't hard to find. That figured. Light leaked out from under the door. Somebody was in. The door was locked. Osborne could have been lying.
Impatient, friend?
He wasn't. Mr. Easy was at home. But why the delay?
The strong, silent type, friend?
The name's Craig. I think I'd like you using it better than friend.
I'll try to remember. You coming in, Craig?
If you don't mind.
So, now what?
Just information. What do you know about Ann Kelly?
Why do I discuss her with you?
I'm on a job. And it could turn out pretty nasty. And it could be the Kelly girl doesn't deserve it.
She appeals to you? That could be arranged. You got a heavy hand, friend.
Lay off the friend, huh?
Going around protecting virtue, you're a little late with Kelly.
I asked you a question.
So you did.
No. The desk drawer stays shut. I don't want to admire your gun. About the girl.
She works here. The customers like her. I pay her $125 a week, period.
How'd you come to hire her?
She dropped in, asked for an audition, and she got it, so she got the job.
Nice and neat.
Don't try to make a thing of a girl passing out, Craig. Kelly happens to pass out easy.
How'd you know she fainted? You stalled me outside the door. Come on.
I like it here.
I said come on.
All right, take your hands off. I'm coming.
Thanks. Stall me outside your door. Stall me in your office. You knew about her fainting. The pretty boy must have phoned from her dressing room. This one.
What's the idea of busting in here?
You're not Ann Kelly.
Of course she isn't, Craig. I could have told you that before you half knocked the door down.
Hold on. Yeah. The same room. A hunk of paper with her name on it was torn off the door.
Look, Craig, the little lady here's dressing for her act. We're in her way.
This was Ann Kelly's dressing room up until a couple of minutes ago.
You're crazy. I'm beginning to think you never even seen her.
Where is she, Easy?
She finished her last show for the night, probably on her way home.
No.
Well, the little lady could start screaming. That would bring us lots of company.
Yeah. So it's going to be this way. I never saw Ann Kelly. She wasn't here. I never handed her a... Wait a minute. What's this?
That? Looks like a puppet to me.
Whose puppet?
How would I know? Maybe it belongs to Susie. Does it, Susie?
Sure.
There you are, Craig. Well?
A nice snooker play. Shut Craig off in a corner, get Kelly out of the place, and... Okay. Excuse me, little lady.
Craig.
Yeah?
I don't want any trouble. I don't know what you think you saw.
Make it short.
But if you want to look through the place, it's okay with me.
Thanks. I'm not much good at closing stable doors, though. So long, Easy. I was in a hurry. Ann Kelly wouldn't be in the phone book. I needed help. A confidential investigator isn't much good on a big deal in a hurry, whatever the book says. I yelled for help to the cops. Lieutenant Rogers.
Oh, Craig, the perambulating operative.
Take it easy, Trav, and don't forget, I never went to college.
Will anyone ever forget I did?
Lead a clean life, and maybe they will. Trav, I need help in a hurry.
What kind of help?
I want a girl named Ann Kelly found, and found fast.
What's special about her?
She faints when you shove a puppet under her nose.
I feel something like that about puppets myself. You're not joking?
No.
All right. We'll go see what the boys in the back room are having. What can you give me on her?
She's an entertainer at Easy's open house.
So far, pretty bad.
I've got a feeling she's in the wrong place.
Chivalry, Barrie?
It's part of a job.
I beg your pardon. I almost insulted you by implying you have a heart.
Everybody's got a heart. All it does is pump the blood around. I was hired to deliver a puppet to her. She took one look at it and passed out. I went visiting Easy.
Not a nice man.
No. He stalled me. By the time I realized it and shot back to the girl's dressing room, they'd planted somebody else there. The girl was gone.
You stop here. I'll go inside, find out if there's a record on her. You sit down and write out a nice description.
You might feed a pretty boy named Osborne to your men, too. Works for Easy.
Osborne. Sit down, Barrie. Get that description done. No poetry, though.
Poetry? What's that? Trav didn't need a written description. He just thought it might be a good idea if I had something to do while I was waiting. I guess it showed pretty plainly. I didn't bother with the description. I just waited.
Barrie?
Yeah?
Nothing on Kelly. No record. You got that description done?
She's blonde, blue-eyed, medium height, in her 20s. What good would it do you?
No good. Come on.
Come on, where?
Osborne's in the books. I've got an address for him.
All right.
On our way over, you can tell me about who hired you for the puppet delivery.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something in return for it.
You will? What about?
Puppets?
We climbed into Lieutenant Rogers' car and went away from headquarters. My story didn't take up very much time.
You never got a good look at your client, then?
No, I'd recognize him, but...
Maybe it'll come out in the wash. Or perhaps we can correlate a couple of stories.
You're speaking to somebody who had his troubles with the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. I imagine the 8th grade had more trouble with you. Barrie, about a year ago, the department became indirectly interested in the puppet show.
Homicide?
Homicide. The primary interest was by the Treasury. Seems a couple of people who were very good with puppets also did pretty well with distributing counterfeit money.
Peculiar tie-up.
No. The puppets worked with a tent show. A tent show is always moving, hits every part of the country. Its customers keep changing. It's not a bad center for distribution.
I guess not.
The puppets were handled by a couple of people. A blonde girl named Ann Keegan and her father.
Keegan. Kelly.
A possibility. However, the Treasury started pressing. Things happened. There was no direct evidence about the girl, but her father was definitely implicated, along with a couple of men in the background. One to supply the counterfeit, the other to run the whole operation.
They had names?
The manufacturer was called Dalgos. The man in charge may have been John Easy.
May have been?
No evidence. Dalgos served a year on an old charge. The operation was broken up, but a couple of $100,000 in very good counterfeit currency disappeared at the time.
And somebody's looking for it now. You said Homicide was interested?
Yes. The girl's father was cracking under the pressure. He was ready to confess. But someone got to him before then.
And he died?
He died.
Jigsaw puzzles are fun working out. You keep looking at the pieces, and after a while you begin putting them together. You have your problems, but pretty soon you lick them. And then you're finished. But suppose you don't like the picture you wind up with.
Osborne's got an apartment in this house.
He tie in with the tent show deal?
No evidence. Osborne, yes. Apartment 1C. Would be on the ground floor.
Convenient.
You probably think you're being cynical, but you're right. For a criminal, the ground floor is definitely convenient.
I'm bright without knowing it, huh? About the only way I'm bright.
Your modesty is becoming. How accurate it is.
No knock?
No knock. This one ought to do it. We won't loiter until invited. Yes.
Yes, what? The room's empty.
But the lights are on.
Door on the opposite wall.
Shut. However. Bedroom. And...
Not empty.
That's your friend, Osborne?
He's not nearly so pretty anymore. The girl.
No sign of her in here. Nor in the living room.
The bathroom. No.
Well, the body's still warm. Window open. Alley.
Anything besides the garbage cans?
Sure. Ash cans. Phone? No. Back in the living room. Nice apartment. A Modigliani on the wall. Modern furniture. With thick walls.
The shots weren't hurt. A what on the wall?
That painting.
Looks more French than Italian.
Mm-hmm. You knew who Modigliani was all along. Oh, well. We'll have company in a few minutes. The girl must have decided she didn't care for Osborne's hospitality. Barrie! Barrie, come back here. I don't want you sticking that thick neck of yours out. Barrie!
I wasn't in the mood for company. Besides, everything had gone too smooth, too fast. The cops would have a time breaking things out into the open. They were dealing with professionals. Me, maybe I wouldn't be figured close. I never won any medals for brilliance. It might be a help. Everything had happened in a hurry. The man who'd handed me the puppet that started everything had mentioned how smart I'd be if I stayed away from my office until my job was done. That meant a man would be watching it. Maybe nobody had notified him I'd finished my job. Maybe he'd still be watching the office. He was there. He wasn't happy about it either. That was a cold doorway he was holding down. Me, I picked another doorway and waited. I wait very good. One of these days, I'm going to start a movement to have all doorways heated, if I ever thaw out. A car came down the street. A quick look told me it was the same one I'd seen the boy with the puppet riding. I let it pass me and made my car. And watched the car up ahead stop for the mug on sentry duty. He climbed in. Everything was okay now. Craig could go upstairs and collect his 200. But Craig had other ideas. They weren't expecting company. They weren't very careful. They let a straight run downtown and over towards the harbor. They pulled the car up into an alley, left it there, and used their feet. It wasn't a long walk. They used a stoop, went into a house that was young and fresh, maybe when the last century died, and shut the door behind them. Force of habit got me to the back door. There wasn't a cop in sight. I leaned on the door. It opened. They were pretty sure of themselves. Downstairs was nothing much. A couple of empty rooms, one that wasn't empty. 2 mugs, neither of whom interested me. I tried the stairs. Nobody was worried. I got to the top. Things improved up there. If you could call it an improvement.
The waterworks don't make much of an impression on me, kid.
I don't know what you want.
In a pig's eye,
I've already told you.
Sure, and I already didn't believe you.
I can't. Oh.
I got lots more. Well?
I could open the door and walk in. I might live long enough to identify my client, but not long enough to do the girl much good.
I ain't got all year. I need the green stuff. I got sent up. The cops took over my equipment. I need the green stuff. I pass it on back in business again. You wouldn't want to stand in my way, would you?
I never knew anything about...
Sure, it was your old man. Remember what happened to him? It could happen to you.
What was the smart move? Get out of there and yell for the cops? Maybe they would have showed up in time. But who's smart? Hello, Dalgas.
Your private eye. What?
I don't like the way you treat women, Dalgas. I'm firing you as a client.
Okay, you've been funny. Now talk straight.
That was straight.
What are you waiting for, a medal?
I'll take Ann Keegan instead.
You know who I am?
It's been a lousily kept secret.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I ain't giving out Ann Keegan's tonight.
Just one will be enough.
You packing a rod, Snoop?
What do you think?
I think you ain't. Otherwise, you'd be showing. So...
I can break you in half before you get yours out.
Maybe. But the boys downstairs, what do you think they'll be doing?
You'd be dead before they got here.
Maybe. Maybe not. But after they got here, you would be dead. And the girl, she might not be so lucky.
We've both got something.
All you got's a prayer.
No. You haven't yelled for help yet.
So what?
So you're afraid of what I'd do to you before they got here.
I'm just hanging around waiting to see how bright you are.
We'll leave it at that. I'm not at all bright. I want the girl.
Nah.
We've both got something. You've got the boys downstairs. Me? I've got the green stuff. The 200 grand in counterfeit money.
Where did you...
Not here, not on me. How foolish do you think I am?
You're running a nice bluff.
No bluff. Ann, how'd you get your job at the open house?
After my father was killed, Easy offered it to me. He used to be a friend of my father's. He said he'd look after me.
I'll bet he did.
None of this tells me where the stuff is.
Nobody's telling you. Not till the girl and I are out of here.
You take me for a sucker?
You picked the girl up after she left the nightclub. You'd sent me to her with a puppet. You figured it would frighten her and make her run.
You're not telling me anything I don't know.
Yes, I am. Was anyone with her?
Yeah, cute little fella. I didn't have any trouble with him.
His name's Osborne.
I ain't anxious for an introduction.
You picked up something else when you picked Ann up.
Yeah?
A murder rap.
That's supposed to be funny? A murder rap for who?
Osborne.
What are you talking about? All I did was push him around a little.
When the cops found him, he'd been pushed around a lot. With half a dozen .32 caliber lead-nosed slugs.
Oh, what's that got to do with...
You've got it all now. How do you like it?
I don't like it. At all.
You've got one chance of beating that rap.
Yeah, how?
Keeping the girl and me alive.
How would that happen?
I can clear you if I want to. But it'll cost you.
Cost me what?
$200,000 in counterfeit money. It took him a little time to decide. Him a little time and me a lot of sweat. But then he came around, halfway. He let Ann go. She went. But me he was holding on to until I could produce the counterfeit money and the out for a murder rap.
I got a gun on you, and I keep it on you. The boys cover the open house front and back. Any funny business?
I know.
Yeah, but you ain't sure. You can be sure. With that rap riding my shoulders, what have I got to lose?
What do you want me to do? Turn green with fright?
Well, we've arrived. What do you know? Hey, Sam, get out first. Cover a big boy from the outside, huh? You go out, Craig.
Thanks.
Me with you. We walk nice and close together. The gun right under your ribs. You wouldn't think of a quick wrestle. Trigger's shaved, goes off if I breathe too hard.
It's all built up. Let's go, huh?
Sam, you take the back. Big boy walks out without me. He gets it hard. You stay out here, Beef. Same orders for you. Come on, Craig. That joint ain't open.
Not for business. There's a back office.
Yeah. That's where we do business?
Right. We go in.
It don't smell good in here.
You ever been in a place that did?
You watch it. I insult Easy.
Easy reminds me. Ever know a man named Easy?
Nah.
You're going to. Come on.
Light through that door.
The one we want. I don't think we knock. Hello, Easy.
Craig. And...
Hey, what did you call him?
Easy. John Easy. Any objections?
Well, the name's Marlowe. Ain't it, Marlowe?
Hello, Doggos. Long time no see.
Not such a long time, a 1-year stretch.
And that's over. I'm pleased for you. Though I can't say I approve of the company you're keeping.
Never mind that. I got a gun on him. But what about...
He's the man worked with you and Keegan before you were sent up, Dalgas?
Sure.
He's the man gave Ann Keegan a job here because he used to be a friend of her father's.
Nothing wrong with that.
Except, who killed Ann Keegan's father, Dalgas?
I don't know.
Did you?
You're fishing for what?
The truth. I don't think you killed him, Dalgas.
Thanks for nothing.
But who did? Who does it have to be?
Doggos, why my office? I mean, if you enjoy playing games with this thick-headed idiot...
I don't think you killed Osborne either, Dalgas. But look when Osborne dies. Immediately after your release from jail. And under what circumstances? When he was supposedly hiding Ann Keegan out. What does that add up to? Your conviction, because you wound up with Ann Keegan.
Well, that much I know. What you're handing me now
John Easy, alias Marlowe. He had the motive. He'd latched onto the $200,000. He knew you'd be after Ann as soon as you got out. That's why he hired her. So he could use her for a bait for a trap in which he could break your neck.
It could be that way.
Dalgos.
Yeah?
You got your gun on, Craig?
Yeah.
Then you won't be able to do very much about this, will you?
What?
Yeah, my gun pointing at you. As far as yours is concerned, shoot Craig or not as you please.
Why, you dirty...
You're using that gun on Craig? No? Then suppose you drop it.
Okay.
Mr. Craig is unfortunately right. Too bad you had to get him involved in this, Dalgos. Otherwise, you'd have a little longer to live. Not much, but every hour counts, doesn't it?
You've got that dough.
Of course I have, and I'll have fun spending it. With caution. Now think of your orphan, Dalgos.
You can't afford it.
Sure I can. Craig tracked you down. You and he had a gunfight. You both got killed. Who knows? Craig might even get a medal. It'll work, Dalgos.
I don't think so.
What?
Drop it. I said...
What?
Hi, Barrie.
Hello and welcome, Trav.
Mr. Easy, or I guess I should say Marlowe, will live long enough. The counterfeit money?
In his safe, I guess.
Oh, we'll find out. Are you waiting for anything, Dalgos?
Huh? No.
I've got a few policemen outside. They've collected his associates. I think they'll be pleased to pick him up. He's managed to acquire a few brand new charges in a very short time.
Thanks for showing up on time. I was beginning to wonder if you ever would.
You were gambling on the girl, weren't you?
Uh-huh.
But she was honest that she'd come straight to us, and...
Paid off, didn't it?
She's waiting for you at headquarters. She wants to see you. Barrie, when you get to her, I think you'll first realize just how well it paid off.
Good night, folks. See you next week.
You've been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, A Very Odd Job, was written by Lou Vittis. Next week, it's the strange story titled Diary of Death, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, murder counts to a bloody 3. When 3 pieces of a treasure map that should lead to a great fortune only leads to greater misfortune. See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Anne was Elspeth Eric. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
Now, Robert Montgomery presents something different in news analysis on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, a pretty fun ride. Lots of great twists as usual with Barrie Craig. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. And, some listeners are a little bit behind where we are right now. Tim, about 100 episodes back, says, I'm slowly but surely catching up in my quest to listen to great detectives from the beginning. Just past episode 400. I suspect that you already know this, but in case no one has told you, episode 397, Nero Wolf, has your intro comments on both of the ends of the episode. I was a bit disappointed not to be able to hear your words of wisdom concerning the episode. By the way, recently heard listener comments are right. When you slow down your delivery, the commentary is much easier to understand. Keep up the good work, and thanks again for the podcast. Well, thanks so much. And that's one thing I have to remember and be very conscious of. Not self-conscious, but I tend to, I guess, have a mental association with fastness and speed being an indication of excitement. And perhaps in some situations they are, like in cartoons, I guess. But, yeah, even going back to college, that's something I continue to work on. Thanks for the reminder. And then received another note, this one on the 400th episode special, Screen Directors Playhouse DOA. Just a quick note, I know that I just wrote you this morning, however, while driving to and from work, I listened to the Screen Directors Playhouse DOA. I have to disagree with your comment about the music. Although I've not seen the movie, I thought that a single piano playing in lower registers was perfect for establishing a film noir feeling to the radio play. I even recall commenting to myself early on in the play that the music fit the story. Keep on with your great podcast, Tim. Well, thanks so much, Tim, and maybe it is an effect of having seen the movie. But different people have different perspective on those. So, using a single piano may also have been an indication of NBC radio budgetary constraints in 1951. But thanks so much for your comments, and we're actually coming up on our 500th episode special. And I hope you'll enjoy that just as well, and encourage you to plan on listening to Dick Powell and To the Ends of the Earth. Tomorrow, Dick Powell will be with us in Rogues Gallery. Well, I want to begin with thanking some listener support, and then I also have a public service announcement for those of you who have Netflix and enjoy Perry Mason. So I want to say thank you to Leslie and Lorna, to Eric, who says he's very happy to support this project. Please keep up the very good work. To Jean, to Keith, and Keith actually emails in, says, thank you for the podcast. I've enjoyed many hours. And then Brian, and also Doug. Well, thank you so much for your support. Greatly appreciated. And in terms of final outcome, I will be adding that up in the next couple of days, and we'll be able to discuss it more on Let George Do It. Now to a public service announcement. If you have Netflix, which we've recommended on the program in the past, I came across the news that Netflix is ending their agreement with Starz, the premium television channel, which means a lot of their Starz catalog is going away. Among the programming offered by Starz is all of the 1980s and 1990s Perry Mason movies with Raymond Burr, and then even some of the Perry Mason mysteries that followed with other actors after Raymond Burr's death. So if you're a fan of these programs, you've got Netflix, you want to watch them on the Instant Watch, I encourage you to do so. They'll probably be taken away this coming February due to the change between Netflix and Starz. All right, well, now we're going to take a listen to today's episode of Rogues Gallery. This one is called The Corpse I Didn't Kill.
The F.W. Fitch Company presents Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery.
Laugh a while, let a song be your style, use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair, use Fitch shampoo.
The F.W. Fitch Company, makers of Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo and Fitch's shaving creams, presents Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery.
Rogue speaking. You know, I'm a man who loves sunshine, in or out of orange juice. And the only place that has more sunshine per square inch than the Sahara Desert is the San Fernando Valley. San Fernando seems to be the place where everybody, including some of the healthiest gophers in the world, makes his home but me. I've withstood the blandishments of hundreds of brick-red real estate men who have offered me membership in that clan of plaid-shirted, tight blue-jeaned, high-heel-booted fraternity known as the San Fernando Valley Ranchers. Ranchers. Yes, sir. The San Fernando Valley has ranches that are thicker than any place in the world. There are at least 2 on every acre. Well, anyway, I was driving around out there this Sunday evening. It was swimming weather, and I happened to remember that my friend Joe Dale had a half-acre spread in the neighborhood with a quarter-acre swimming pool. So I stopped at the antlers on the gate, rang the ship's bell hanging there, but nobody answered. I thought maybe Joe was in the pool in the rear, so I opened the door and walked in. Then I felt like walking out again. because I saw Joe Dale lying there, making a red stain on the white living room rug. Very defunct. I walked over to him and gazed down at him. Then I heard the footsteps behind me and did a half turn in time to see oblivion whistling down on my head. Oh. Everything went red, white, and blue. And I was whirling like a top. Oh, it made me dizzy whirling like that. I couldn't stand the shrieking of the wind as it whistled past my ears. I concentrated on stopping so hard that I could hear my teeth gritting. But no go. Then I thought of Igor. And suddenly I heard his pleasant voice.
Hello, Cheapy. Welcome home to Cloudy.
Oh, my head.
Funny looking, ain't he? Wait till he sees you.
Igor, who is this ancient feather merchant with you?
Well, Rogie, I warned you. This is her father.
You mean the little dame's father?
Is he talking about my daughter? Yes. Sir?
What's he doing with that gun? He couldn't pull the trigger with a tractor.
Will you see, Cheapy? You're the young whippersnapper who's advising you go here not to marry my daughter. Well, let me tell you something.
Oh, shut up. I don't feel good.
Rogie, you're making things tough for me. Her father has a gun. I'm not going to stand for much more fooling around, you guys.
Oh, make him stop talking. His voice sounds like a grindstone on a grindstone.
Now, looky here, young fella. I'm a gentleman of the old school. And if my daughter is half-witted enough to want to marry this good-for-nothing you guys...
Oh, no. I'm not going to let my alter ego get married. Igor can't get married.
Oh, that's a mighty selfish way of looking at things, Rogie.
Oh, look, my head. I don't feel good. I came up here for a rest.
Now, we're going to have a serious talk, Mr. Oak. My daughter's happiness is a mighty important thing to me.
Oh, shut up. I can't stand that silly voice of yours.
But he's right, Rogie. You can't stand in the way of our happiness. It's not fair. It's only normal to want to get married. Now, look at it from our point of view, Mr. Oak. Here's a couple of...
I can't stand it. I'm getting out of here.
Grab him. Come back here. Come back here.
When I came to, I was looking right in Joe Dale's face, which was inches from mine. The inside of my head was still whirling and clanking like a washing machine, but it didn't take me long to get back up to date. I remembered I had dropped in at Joe Dale's house for a quick swim and found Joe stretched out on the living room floor, shot. Then I remembered that swishing sound, which always means another bump on my head. And now my feet felt like they were in diver's shoes as I got up and looked the situation over. The murder gun was lying there by the side of Joe's body, and there was a billfold on the floor by the door. Being the kind of a guy I am, I picked up the billfold first. It was Joe Dale's, and I put it in my pocket. Then I took my handkerchief and carefully picked up the gun. I was bending over Joe, gun in hand, when I heard a voice behind me.
Joe!
A beautiful dame had walked in on me and caught me bending over the corpse, gun in hand. She fainted. I ran over to her. Hey, come out of it, lady. Lady, hey, come on. Oh, come on. Oh, Lord, everything happens to me. Come on, come out of it. Open your eyes. But she didn't. And while I was working on her, a man showed up in the open door. He took one look at the tableau and dived for the murder gun which I had dropped. He pointed the gun at my third vest button and said,
"Just stay right where you are. I know how to shoot this thing, and I'm holding you for the police. Your partner got away, but I'll
Look, mister, I am the police.
I know who you are. You're Richard Rowe, the private investigator. You've been mixed up in plenty of shady deals before. What did you do to my wife?
Is this your wife?
Yes. What's the matter with her?
Well, she came in, saw Joe Dale's body, and fainted.
Barrie, is that you?
Yes, dear. Now, don't worry.
Oh.
I'm here, and I'll take care of you.
This man, he was standing over Joe's body with a gun in his hand when I came in. He's a killer, Barrie. Be careful.
Don't worry, dear. I have him covered. Stay right there, Rogue. I'm a nervous man, and I advise you not to move while I'm phoning the police.
We'll return to our story in just a moment. First, time was when heavy perfumed oils were considered the thing for pleasant-smelling hair. Now, of course, we know that the clean, delicate fragrance imparted to the hair by Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo is much more the modern idea of good grooming. This clear, golden liquid shampoo makes an abundance of creamy lather that does an efficient job of cleansing the hair. It removes dust, perspiration, oily film, and all unpleasant scalp odors. Leaves the hair with a gloriously fresh, clean feeling. And Fitch's saponified shampoo is made from mild coconut and pure vegetable oils. Thus, you can use it as often as you like, because Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo does not rob your hair of its natural oils. Always leaves it soft, lustrous, and manageable. Next time you're at your barber or beauty shop, ask for a professional application of Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo. Or buy an economical bottle at your drug or toilet goods counter. Look for the bottle with the bright yellow label. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
I couldn't very well blame Perry Stevens or his wife for thinking I just put the kiss of death on Joe Dale. Mrs. Stevens came in and saw me bending over the body with a murder gun in my hand, promptly fainted. And so when Perry arrived, the floor was cluttered with bodies, and I was the only stranger. He picked up the killer's gun and held me at the point of it until the cops arrived. Lieutenant Urban of Homicide was in charge, as usual. He seemed a little bit discouraged with me.
Well, Rogie, what's your story?
Urban, it's a simple one. I just dropped in here to take a swim and found Joe Dale dead.
Why didn't you report the murder to Homicide?
I didn't have a chance. The killer was hiding here in the room. He slapped me silly and escaped while I was out. How do you think I got this cut on my head, shaving?
I never know about you.
There were two of them, Lieutenant. I saw one of them run out from behind this house. A big man, red-haired, rough. This man here, this Richard Rogue, had an accomplice.
When I came in, Mr. Rogue was bending over the body with a gun. That gun in his hand. I almost caught him in the act.
How about it, Rogie?
Well, I was bending over the body all right. I'd just come to. I was checking up.
Why didn't you call Homicide when you came to?
I was going to, Urban, but this dame here walked in on me, screamed, fainted.
I demanded to arrest this man.
Oh, wait a minute. What were you doing here?
I came over to...
Joe was an old friend. We just came over to take him to dinner. Don't try to implicate a couple of law-abiding people in your crime.
You and your wife came together?
Of course.
Then how come she came in ahead of you?
I hesitated when I saw that man run out from behind the house. Lieutenant, do I have to stand here and let this murderer cross-question me?
Mrs. Stevens, you and your husband came here together?
Yes. We had a dinner date with Joe.
Did you see this man run away from the house?
No, I came right straight inside.
Okay. Look, Rogie, you'd better come down to headquarters with me right now. We've got some talking to do.
Urban, I'll be down in an hour. I want to go to the emergency hospital and have my head put back on. I got to go home and get a suit without these red polka dots. Then I'll be down.
I demand that you put Rogue under arrest, Lieutenant.
Now, take it easy, Mr. Stevens. I've had a little more experience with this sort of thing than you have. See you in an hour, Rogie. Be there.
That gash on my head had cost me a lot of blood, and I was a little woozy as I left the ex-residence of the late Joe Dale. I drove turtle speed to the emergency hospital, where the doc made a few insulting remarks about me getting scars on my poor head. And then I went home. I walked in the door, and an arm went around my throat. A crooked elbow squeezed my Adam's apple until I choked. I felt a hand sneak into my inside breast pocket and lift that wallet I'd picked up on the floor beside Joe Dale's body. The elbow squeezed a little tighter, and I had a horrifying sensation of bursting lungs. And
then the elbow released me, and I fell to the floor, to the accompaniment of departing footsteps. I was still lying there when Urban walked in through the open door.
I got worried about you when you didn't show up, Rogie. What happened?
I don't know. I guess I just got faint. Flopped over here. I lost a lot of blood, you know.
Better take care of yourself, Rogie. I don't want to lose you. Feel like talking?
Oh, sure, but I don't know anything to talk about.
Maybe you'd like to talk about a murder.
Well, and tell me, did you, get a line on that red-headed guy that was seen leaving Joe's house?
I've got a description out on him. Nothing's happened yet.
How about Mr. and Mrs. Stevens? Check up on them?
Yeah. Stevens is the personnel director for an airplane company. Pays his bills promptly, has money in the bank, lives within his income. And he's been a friend of Joe Dale's since college days. They're clean. That leaves you and a big red-headed guy in the finals. One of you killed Joe Dale. I don't think you did it, but I could get an indictment against you in 20 minutes for the evidence I have.
Oh, but I didn't kill him. I didn't like him well enough. Well, I guess it's up to me to find the big red-headed guy, huh? You checked the gun?
No soap. The number was filed off, and the only fingerprints on it were Stevens. And they got on it when he was holding you.
Yeah, I was there when it happened, remember? Oh, brother. Brother, do I feel weary. Well, there's one thing I'll swear to. Mrs. Stevens was not expecting to find Dale murdered. She really went out like a butler on Thursday night.
You know, Rogie, I'm a cop, and the fact that you and I understand each other doesn't make any difference to the commissioner.
Yeah, I know.
Joe Dale was a pretty prominent character. Lots of connections. Now, the commissioner expects a quick pinch, and with our friends, the Stevens, down there at City Hall, swearing that they saw you standing over the body with a practically smoking gun in your hand, well, it looks like it's going to be you I put the arm on.
Oh, but you know I didn't kill him, Urban. Why would I want to kill a guy like that
Yes,
for?
I know you didn't kill him, but the newspapers are on the old man. He's on the chief, and the chief's on me. I'm going to have to pinch you, Rogie.
You're a great pal, Urban. But look, if you pinch me, they'll never get a conviction. You know that you can't get a conviction without a motive.
I know that, but you've made a lot of enemies around headquarters, Rogie. They see a chance to give you a bad time, and they don't want to miss it. You can see the spot I'm in.
Yeah. Now, look, Urban. Give me 24 hours to get the guy that pulled the boom on Joe Dale. Just 24 hours, and I'll have him for you.
Oh, that's whistling in the dark, Rogie.
Yeah, with a 10 whistle. But just give me a chance at it anyway. Maybe I'll be lucky.
Okay. It'll probably put me back on the beat, but I'll play along with you. You've got 24 hours, Rogue. Then, don't make me come after you. Come in and give yourself up.
The deal? Yeah, the deal. Oh, you're a good cop, Urban. I know you're sticking your neck out like a turtle at feeding time, and believe me, I won't let you down.
Okay, Rogue, I'll get out. Better get some sleep.
You look awful. Oh, I can't afford the luxury of sleeping. I got work to do.
Okay, Rogue, call me if you need me. I'll be around. Lots of luck. You'll need it.
Hello?
Hello. Is Lieutenant Urban there?
Just a minute. Hey, Urban.
Yeah? For me?
Yeah. He'll be right here. Hang on. Oh, mighty excited little man on the other end of this.
Yeah? Hello. Urban speaking.
Lieutenant Urban, this is Perry Stevens.
Yeah? And what do you want?
That red-headed man that I saw running away from Joe's house this afternoon.
Yes.
He came here tonight to my house.
Well, what did you do?
He came here to kill me, but I shot him. He's dead. Please come out at once.
I'll be right there. Now, don't move a thing till I get there. Come on, Rogie.
Well, this puts that 8-ball I was behind over in the corner pocket, doesn't it, Urban?
Yeah, looks like Stevens wrapped his case up for us.
And that makes me very happy. Oh, I wasn't looking forward to sweating it out in that jail of yours. No, I didn't have anything against that red-headed guy, but I'm never going to miss him.
Well, takes me off the spot, too, you know.
Yeah, well, you don't have to be a hero in my corner. Oh, well, all's well that ends well, coin a phrase.
It's right down this next block here.
Huh? Stevens must have a lot of cabbage, big houses in this neighborhood.
Yeah, I checked that. The wife's got money. Oh, there it is, that two-story white shop. There's the precinct prowl car in front. The boys are on the job.
Well, let's get with it.
Good evening, Lieutenant.
Hello, Bauer. Medical examiner here yet?
No, not yet. Precinct boys just got here.
Thanks. Come on, Rogie.
Wow, this is quite a layout. Wife's got dough, huh?
Yeah, and Uncle left her plenty about a year ago.
Makes it nice for Perry.
Oh, what a mind.
Yeah, you know, someday Betty Callahan and I are going to have a chicken ranch out here in this valley.
Look, we're investigating a murder. That's serious business.
All right, Charlie, take it.
Hello, boys. Where is he?
Right in there, Lieutenant.
Thanks.
Well, Lieutenant, it's about the time you were getting here.
We came as fast as we could, Stevens. Now, suppose you tell me what happened.
I'll be glad to. My wife and I got home tonight.
Where is your wife?
Is he any right to question me in that tone of voice, Lieutenant?
Where is your wife?
Why, the shock was too much for her. She's upstairs.
Don't blame her. She's had enough for today. Come on, what happened? You got him with that shotgun, eh?
Yes. I was frightened, terribly frightened, and as soon as I came home, I got my shotgun. I hunted a little, you know, and I put it here beside my chair. It was just a hunch.
Yeah?
The doorbell rang. My wife answered the door. We thought it was a neighbor. This red-headed man walked in. I recognized him at once. He was the man I'd seen run away from Joe's house. He had a gun. He was going to kill me. I suppose because I was the only eyewitness to the crime.
Well, that makes sense.
It certainly does. It's the truth. He turned to talk to my wife. I saw my chance. I shot him. There he is. Your murderer. I've never seen anybody killed before.
Well, he's sure dead.
Yeah. Ever see him before?
No, not that I know of. Hey, what are you doing, Rogie?
Oh, I'm just trying to get some identification on the guy, that's all. So take down. I thought... Uh-oh.
What's the matter?
An alligator billfold. I didn't expect to see one on this guy. And hey, Urban. This is Joe Dale's billfold. And it's full of dough. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, several $100 in it.
Yeah, that's the final piece of evidence.
Mm-hmm. I'll take care of it.
Well, there's the medical examiner, and the newspapers are about due to arrive. You've done a good night's work, Mr. Stevens. I want to thank you.
I'm not a man of violence. I'll never be able to forget this night.
There was something about that wallet that was as strange as the bride in black. Other identification on the body pegged the redhead as one Tom Church, recently of the Navy, now a resident of the Crane Hotel. I watched for my chance to give Urban and his minions the slip and faded away. I went to police headquarters and charged into the Identification Bureau on a dead run. I handed the sergeant in charge the wallet and asked him to dust it for fingerprints. Then I waited. When the sergeant came back, his jaw was stuck out like the business end of a snowplow, and there were icicles in his voice.
What's the deal, Rogie?
Well, what's the matter with you? All I asked you to do is to give me the identification on the fingerprints you found on the billfold.
Yeah. Do you know whose prints I found, you wise private creep, do you? Yours. Only yours.
We'll return to our story in a moment. First, a word to the ladies. Did you ever make the remark that your hair never was manageable after a shampoo until it was time to wash it again? That's been the experience of many a woman. Well, you can have your hair immaculately clean, lustrous, and manageable, too. Try using Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo for your hair care. This shampoo is made from pure natural oils and leaves your hair soft and manageable even immediately after shampooing. Its creamy, fragrant lather never dries the hair, but cleanses gently, removing dirt, perspiration, and every trace of unpleasant scalp odors. Fitch's saponified shampoo brings out the gleaming, natural color highlights in your hair, too, and leaves it clean and fragrant. A special patented rinsing agent contained right in the shampoo leaves your hair sparkling clean and free from any dull, soapy film. Try Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo the next time you want an extra special beauty treat for your hair. Then use it regularly to keep your hair soft, fragrant, and lovely. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
The news that the only fingerprints on that billfold were mine turned on the floodlights. And one of my hunches picked up a hammer and started pounding against my skull. I left the billfold there for Urban and took off for the Crane Hotel to check up on the red-headed guy named Tom Church. The hotel was a fourth-class flea bag on Main Street, The clerk took a look at my buzzer and answered my questions. That's right, Shorty. I'm the law. And I want some answers. Now tell me, how long has Tom Church been registered here?
Tom Church, 3 days. He came in 3 days ago.
All right. Now let me see his phone calls.
Oh, we don't give out phone
Now don't lip me. Give them to me before I jump over that counter and stand on you while I pick them up.
Oh, okay. You look like just the kind of guy that could do it. I'll get them for you.
I checked the phone calls and found one of them had a message that was going to ring somebody's number for a surprise party. I thanked the clerk and drove to the valley. The pre-dawn gray made way for the sunshine just as I walked up the front walk at Dale's house. An elderly man walked around the next branch, pushing a lawnmower.
Hey, are you a policeman?
That's right, yes.
A horrible thing, that murder yesterday. Did they get the killer yet?
Well, I think so. Were you home yesterday afternoon at the time of the killing?
Yeah, I wasn't paying much attention, you know. I heard the shot, but I thought it was a backfire,
Look, old-timer, I want you to tell me everything you saw and heard after that shot, will you?
Well, you see, I was sitting in my living room reading the evening paper, you know, and I saw you drive up. You sure you're a policeman, mister?
Why, yes, of course.
Yes, well, I'd like to see your credentials. You know, you were the first man I saw enter there.
All right, here's the dope on me. Here, the sheriff's office loves me. There it is. Satisfied?
Oh, yes. I've heard of you, Mr. Rogue. Well, after you drove up, the lady arrived and...
What do you want, Mr. Rogue?
Mrs. Stevens, I'm coming in. I want to talk with you.
No, come back later.
I'm sorry. Go on in and sit down.
What do you want?
Some answers. Sit down. Now, where's your husband?
Asleep. Nothing ever wakens him.
All right, let's get right to it, huh? What were you to Joe Dale?
I don't know what you mean.
Mrs. Stevens, you've been seeing Joe a lot, haven't you? Now, don't bother lying. I've got witnesses. You and Joe Dale were better friends than your husband knew, weren't you?
Oh, no. I used to meet Joe once in a while to talk over investments he was making for me.
Uh-huh. At his house? In the afternoons, usually, huh?
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens, your husband killed Joe Dale. You lied when you said that the two of you had a dinner date with Joe last night. I just talked to your husband's secretary. He was supposed to be in San Francisco yesterday.
No.
Yes. But instead, he went out in the valley and killed Dale. I practically surprised him in the act. He got panicky, knocked me out, and ran.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
I can prove what I'm saying, Mrs. Stevens. You came up in your car alone. Your husband came up in a cab a few minutes later. He had to get back in to get that wallet and the gun to make the murder look like a robbery. And he picked the gun up so there'd be a reason for his fingerprints on it. Then he went to my apartment and collected the wallet after choking me half to death. Were you with him then?
You're just making this up. You can't prove it.
Mart! Don't say any more. It's a little late for that, Stevens. You've bungled the job all the way through. And you won't be needing that gun.
Harry, don't. Don't shoot.
Give me that gun, Stevens. You'd be crazy to get in a shooting contest with me. You stay right where you are, Rogue.
I'm not afraid to shoot. Marge, they can't make you appear against me. That's the law. If you stay with me...
I'm coming after that gun, Stevens.
You stay where you are, Rogue. Marge, stop looking at me like that. Nobody knows anything about what I did but Rogue and...
No, Perry. You killed them. And I'm glad to get rid of you.
You... Marge, you can't. Don't sell me out.
I've been frightened to death ever since I've married to you. Take that gun away from him, Rogue. Take it away from him.
Give me the gun, Stevens.
Get away from me, Rogue. Marge, you're going back on me. You can't do that, Marge. We're in this thing together.
Let me have that gun, Stevens.
I should have shot you instead of him.
Give me that gun or I'll break your arm off. Give it to me. Okay, Stevens. This is the end of Easy Street for you. Well, that finished that case. Stevens went to the gas chamber on Marge's testimony, and Marge is still in prison on an accessory rap. The red-headed kid, Tom Church, he was an innocent victim. He'd been interviewed by Stevens for a job the day before. Stevens knew he had no relatives, no connections, So he decided to frame him for the murder of Joe Dale. He described Church to the police, then called him at his hotel and asked him to come to Stevens' home for an interview about a job. If Church had been in when the call came, I might have muffed the case. But he was out, and Stevens left his number for a callback. That was luck, I guess, but I don't know. I think I would have solved the case anyway. Of course, I didn't make a dime out of it. Oh, well, money can't buy happiness. But it can buy a lot of things that make unhappiness pleasant, can't it? Oh, you know what I mean. This is Dick Powell again, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed our story tonight. Ray Buffum wrote it, Leith Stevens composed and conducted the music, and Dee Engelbach produced and directed. Next week, we have a story for you about a missing witness, a worried rogue, and an ambush that failed. Be with us then, will you? Thanks for listening, and now here's Jim Doyle.
Be sure to tune in again next week, same time, same station, when you will again hear Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
Laugh a while, let a song meet us bad. Use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair. Use Fitch shampoo.
After and between Fitch shampoos, you can keep your hair shining and manageable by using a few drops of Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic every day. Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic is not sticky or greasy, yet it gives your hair that well-groomed look.
Welcome back. Well, Richard Rogue's one guy I don't feel particularly sorry for if he misses a fee on a particular adventure. I do have to say his subconscious life is getting more and more messed up as time goes along. So perhaps some of that money should be going to psychiatrists. I should mention that this is actually the last mutual broadcast we have of Rogue's Gallery. The episode, The Missing Witness, officially wrapped up the mutual run, but that, like much of the Rogue's Gallery canon, is lost. But the good news is that Rogue's Gallery moved to NBC for a summer run, and we have the first 4 episodes of that series, which are actually the last 4 episodes we have with Dick Powell. So we're running out of and changing our detective stars in a very close time range. First Tom Conway, and then in a couple weeks it'll be Edmund O'Brien, and then after that Dick Powell. But once that's done, we should be set on most days other than Tuesday, which will see quite a few changes, until summer of 2011 or 2012. I need to get a calendar, not just a clock when I'm recording. All right, well, listener comment from Melissa says, the August 5th Rogues Gallery is a repeat. It's the same as Murder in Drawing Room A you broadcast on May 31st. The titles are different, but broadcasts are identical. Just thought you'd want to know. Well, thanks a lot, Melissa. I think this is a case of script reuse, which was something we saw with Jeff Regan. I think this will probably be the only case we see with Rogue's Gallery. If anyone's aware of a different episode than the one we played for Murder in Drawing Room A, or for the Latin type, let me know, and we'll be happy to get that played. Alright, well, that will do it for today. We will be back next week with the NBC run of Rogue's Gallery, and then join us tomorrow for Let George Do It. Well, before we do get started, I want to acknowledge some listener donations that came in after we recorded Tuesday's show, which was actually recorded on the evening of the 10th. So we received a donation from Brian, from Kent, and from Glenn. Thank you so much for your support. Also received by mail a donation from Joan. Thank you so much for your support, and we kind of are ready for the wrap-up of the whole campaign. And I actually wrote something up here. Usually I don't read wrote things, but made exception here. Been very touched and heartened by the number of donations we've received during the listener support campaign. Coming in, I didn't know quite what to expect, particularly when the American stock market started having problems just as I was making my plans for this campaign. While I've been deeply touched by the support we've received, we've gotten 50 donations from the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, and Belgium. Some were as small as $7, a few were $100 or more. All were and are appreciated. I was also glad to be able to send out some of the thank you gifts. 2 folks received Radio Archives gift certificates to get introduced to that company. And we also were able to share some of the joy of the modern radio productions of Colonial Radio Theater. More than 20 of those sent out, as well as 2 copies of Tales of the Dim Night. Coming in, I was resolved that we wouldn't do this any more than twice a year. And so I set a goal, which if met would mean we would go totally listener supported and not do any affiliate campaigns for 6 months. Well, we didn't quite hit it. At this point, we reached 77% of our goal, which is still pretty good. And so what I've decided is that all of our Monday through Thursday programs will be listener supported, as well as 3 out of 4 episodes of Dragnote, unless we get an actual sponsor. But until then, we only will have ads on Friday and on every 4th episode of Dragnet. Current economic situation has made selling podcast advertising a huge challenge. But friends like you have helped to fill in during these difficulties. Thank you again so much for your support. And now that the speech is over, it's time for today's episode of Let George Do It. This one is called The Witch of Mill Hollow.
Personal notice. Changes my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. The Witch of Mill Hollow, another adventure of George Valentine.
My dear Mr. Valentine, my name is Silas Orrick, and from my experience as editor of a small-town weekly newspaper, I know that I'll have to say but a few words in order to attract your attention. Let me only preface my statement with the remark that Mill Hollow is just an ordinary town with an ordinary number of secrets and the ordinary amount of gossip. That until a year ago, we all got along quite well together, without any disturbing element to ruffle the surface of our peaceful existence. Further, that this is the year 1950, and what happened seems almost impossible. What happened, it did. And yet now, as of this morning, our town is once more peaceful. The disturbing element is no more. And why? Because, Mr. Valentine, last night there was a fire. And in that fire, the witch was burned.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Mr. Valentine. There ain't no such thing as witches. You know that. I don't care what Cy Oric wrote you. He's sort of a windbag anyway.
But we wanted your opinion, Mr. Stern.
He ought to be back in his office over there pretty soon. I'm a busy man today, Miss Brooks. A couple of real estate deals.
Mr. Stearns, we can catch Oric later, all right. But the cleaning woman at his place, Olga, says you're the man who can tell us the facts in a hurry. Says here in Mill Hollow you're the head of the fire department.
Well, all right. Come on in. Fire department. In addition to my other duties, I am. Proud of it. Sort of a volunteer basis. But we got 3 boys on regular and 2 trucks.
And there was a fire last night, huh?
Sit down. We even got prizes for competition with the other small-town departments. I keep them on their toes, let me tell you.
But last night, wasn't there a fire?
Mr. Valentine, let's get this absolutely straight. Yes, there was a fire. The old mill itself went up. Oh, it's nothing but a ramshackle landmark down by the creek back of Widow Lawrence's property. Good for nothing but spooners and cobwebs. Condemned it myself as a hazard 5 years ago. It went up around midnight like a 4-alarmer in Hades. See the flames 10 miles. Well, when it was over, one of the boys spotted, what used to be a woman.
Was that the witch?
Miss Abby, that's her name. A couple of kids said they seen her out late. Seen her sneaking up to this place, the mill.
You mean she was alone out there?
Of course, and I'm telling you from that. And the fact that I can't find a trace of intent in the fire itself, incendiarism to you, that nobody in the proper sense of it got burned. That is, by anybody else. Miss Abby just got herself trapped in an accident.
Unless she set fire to the place herself.
But I just told you that... Oh, I don't know. The witch is burned, period. That's what everybody says.
What was she doing out there anyway at that time of night?
Well, how should I know why a witch does it?
Yes, you were the one who said there aren't any such things as witches.
Well, she wasn't one, the way I remember her. I never had any trouble with Miss Abby.
How is it you do remember her, Mr. Stearns?
Doc Ransom. I suppose he could give you a better idea what made people hate her. Kids be afraid of her. Made her be so ugly, the way she peered at you, shook her umbrella. Oh, little Miss Abby. And she's dead now. Out there at the mill to put a spell on the place. That's what the kids think.
Oh, go on. Tell me about her. What is it you remember?
Well, she was the piano teacher. Yes, piano teacher. That's the main thing. Just as nice to everybody. Never spoke a hard word. Not a whisper of gossip crossed her lips. Not for 25 years, maybe. Regular institution, just like choir practice or the town elm trees. Only, well, about a year ago, I remember, the change began. One of my daughters was taking a lesson while the wife and I listened. I remember the wife's dog, big, fat spaniel it was. He was howling along at the piano the way he always did.
One, two, three. Some under faster, some under faster. Start again. 1, 2, 3. Keep your wrists out. That's better. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
He doesn't bother you, does he, Miss Abby? The dog doing that, I mean.
Dog? No. My lands, no. Wrist. 1, 2. Be dead soon anyway. Let him enjoy himself. Wrist up. 1, 2.
What? What was that? Miss Abby.
No.
Miss Abby, what did you say?
Wrist up. That's it. Lance, I don't know.
About the dog.
The dog. I just said he'll be dead. The big fat nuisance won't whine anymore. He'll be dead very soon.
Miss Abby!
Oh. Mrs. Stearns, what's the matter? What did I say?
She fainted right there on the piano. I remember she came to and said it was just the heat. Nobody mentioned the dog again, of course. Oh, now look, Doc Ransom, he can tell you more than I can. I don't know how a reputation gets started. I'd warned my wife myself about that spaniel. Feeding it so much and he was so old and wheezy. It was a nuisance, too. Only, well, I'll tell you this. Next morning, the dog died.
Fred Stearns is a fool. I don't know why a sweet little lady should start saying strange things. A country doctor, Mr. Valentine, is not a psychiatrist or any highfalutin...
But Dr. Ransom, Miss Abby did change about a year ago.
Oh, the ugliness? That's glands, I suppose. And suddenly talking so much might be from the repression of the years of silence. But I never had any trouble with Miss Abby. She never cut loose on me any more than she did on Auric or the widow Lawrence.
What do you mean, cut loose? The whole town seems to be buzzing with the idea that a witch got burned. Now, can you blame me for being curious why Miss Abby went up in such spontaneous combustion in the midst of such universal dislike?
In the midst of fire, you mean? An accident. Oh, I don't know, Mr. Valentine. Of course, there's no such thing as predicting death or being in tune with the supernatural, but...
But what?
Oh, shooting a mouth off it at funny times. A wedding rehearsal once, I remember that. Nothing to do with her or me or anything else, but just funny the way it happened, that's all. People don't even live here anymore. Miss Abby was playing the music. Anyway, just a fancy rehearsal. Everybody patting each other on the back. Big, successful marriage. Only along right in the middle of it.
No, my land, what am I playing this for? Does anybody have any idea? Why play for rehearsal of a wedding that's never going to happen? Doesn't anybody else know there's not going to be a wedding? Doesn't anybody else know there just isn't going to be any wedding tomorrow? Because there isn't, you know. There isn't. There just doesn't.
Of course there wasn't a wedding. But don't get the idea Miss Abby predicted it or put a hex on it. Well, the bride. Seems she was mixed up with some other boy, married him instead later on.
But the point is the old lady liked to spill secrets, is that it?
I don't know how she could have known.
Or maybe she didn't even know she was doing it or why.
Yes, it seems to me Miss Abby was just a little...
crazy, eh? A lot of people thought that. There was even a growing move on to put her away. Everybody had always been so fond of her before, but I tell you, I wouldn't have wanted to sign the papers, Mr. Valentine. Yes, I might as well admit. It always seemed to me there was, maybe some method in her madness.
She was mean. That's what she was, mean and spiteful. This little rocks at the kid.
Only when they called her names. Go on with your cleaning, Olga.
She would have got around to you sooner or later, Mr. Olga.
Mr. Valentine didn't come here to listen to gossip and superstition.
Maybe I did, Auric.
Olga here has been more help than you have, Mr. Auric.
I can see how you spent your time waiting for me. Your ears getting bigger and bigger. Quite a story, isn't it? But I had my reasons for asking you.
Yeah, well, let's hear them fast, because me, I'm going to ask what the police have to say.
That's where I've been. Where there is smoke, there is fire. It's scarcely the appropriate expression.
What did the cops tell you, Mr. Auric? They knew she was a witch.
I'm sorry, but if you don't mind, I prefer a little privacy today. Thanks. There. The police said nothing. They're investigating.
Uh-huh. And do you think they should investigate?
Well, Miss Abby got so she almost couldn't keep her mouth closed. Every secret she'd ever heard. Every little thing the town was unwilling to face. Of course, from my standpoint, it made a good news source for the paper. Her shoutings and...
Naturally, she never attacked you, did she, Mr. Auric?
What?
Oh, nothing. Just that everyone we talk to seems to be an exception.
Oh. Well, it wasn't only the people she'd offended, or the ones she began to pry about, spy upon. And it wasn't just the ignorant reaction like Olga there, like the unkind children who told stories. No, even the nicer people began to lose patience. I was present one night at the school board meeting when we'd found it necessary to explain to Miss Abby that her services as teacher of our little music appreciation class were no longer desired. It was really quite...
Sakes, you explain it to her, can't you, Doc?
No. No, leave me out of it, Fred.
My lands, I don't see why you want to discharge me. I certainly don't drink like the chemistry teacher does every night or give poker parties like that man.
Now, Miss Abby, never mind.
Is it because I can't stop talking? Is that it? For 20 years, I've never said a word. I've never raised my voice. But the things I've seen and the things I know inside me about people, yes, every one of you. Whether I'm a witch or not, you'll never know. But I'll get you. Yes, I will. And you'll see whether I can be got rid of. Laughed at, pointed to. I'll get you, Dr. Ransom, and you, Fred Stearns, and you, Widow Lawrence, and even you, Cy Orrick, with your sweet little newspaper. All of you who are afraid of me, every one!
And then last night, this poor little mixed-up lady who hated the town as much as it hated her, she dies by accident.
There's her picture. One hesitates to print the story, Mr. Valentine, that a witch would die in a fire.
Mm-hmm. Come on, Brooksy, let's go.
George, here's another place.
Sure. Charred at the base of the wall, just like the other one.
A woman could get trapped in a place like this very easily.
None of these burn spots tell the story. Besides, what was she doing out here at the mill? Hey, look, there's another one, see?
Oh, by the door foundation. Blacker than the rest, isn't it?
Yeah. 3 places burned worse than the rest. You know what that means, don't you?
Well, most accidental fires only start in one place.
Brooksy, it wasn't an accident. I'd be willing to bet on that. Miss Abby was hated and feared by the whole town. And last night she was in here and somebody set fire to...
Last night somebody murdered her.
What?
Oh, hello, Mr. Valentine. I'm Dudley, the sheriff's office.
Oh. I didn't know you were out here.
Yes, I got us nosing around. I didn't notice those burn spots, but... Oh, here. Dug this out of the floor.
It's a bullet.
Mm-hmm. Fired from a .38 revolver, I'd say. I dug it out of the floor right here. About the same place where what was left of the witch was found.
So maybe somebody shot her and then set fire to the building to destroy the evidence.
Enough people around here hated Miss Abby, I guess.
Yeah, the wicked little lady who dug into their secrets, then shouted what she knew, even about the nice people, like Orrick and Stearns and Ransom and... Say, Mr. Dudley, I've kept hearing about the name Widow Lawrence.
That's so? In what connection?
Well, never mind. Who is she?
The exact opposite of Miss Abby, I'd say. Keeps to herself pretty much. Straight-laced. I would never talk about other people. Richest woman in town, too, I suppose.
Yeah.
Always was loudest to say Miss Abby should be put away. That enough?
Uh-huh. Enough to make me want to see the Widow Lawrence right now.
She doesn't answer, George, but her door is partly open.
Small town hospitality. Mrs. Lawrence? Mrs. Lawrence? Stepped out for a minute.
Yeah. George, why do so many people speak of Miss Abby as a witch even after she let herself die? I mean, if you're going to talk about the supernatural, witches aren't supposed to... Hey, George.
Yeah. Mrs. Lawrence? Are you home, Mrs. Lawrence?
In here, I think, George.
Look out! Get out of my way! Huh? My land is no place a woman can... Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I'll get you! I'll get every one of you!
George, did you see...
That wasn't the Widow Lawrence.
The witch, George. Miss Abby, it was she, the witch.
Return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Maybe sometime this month or next you'll find yourself motoring through scenic mountain country. It may be pleasant, even cool for you. But don't forget, that kind of driving is tough on your car's engine. Those long, winding miles of steep grades mean sizzling engine temperatures, a serious threat to upper cylinder walls. Ordinary oils run away from heat like that. But not RPM motor oil. And car owners who live in the mountains will tell you more people prefer RPM than any other brand. In fact, this is the motor oil that's first choice where driving's toughest. For RPM is compounded to cling to hot metal, give you the finest engine insurance you can buy. Tomorrow, start using RPM motor oil in your car. Ask for it at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. The Witch of Mill Hollow, Miss Abby, who for 20 years was only a shy, retiring piano teacher, and who then suddenly became a vindictive, spiteful woman, or a witch. Which is it? Yes, just what is Miss Abby? Because if your name is George Valentine, you came to Mill Hollow on the report that the witch had been burned. Yet you've just seen her, heard her scream as she ran to get away from you, to run outside in the dark.
She went this way. Listen.
No, she didn't. Here, click around here.
I don't see anything now, do you?
So dark, so many trees.
She couldn't just fly away on her broomstick.
Well, it looks
George.
like she did, Angel.
Oh, stop it. She's alive. That was she in the flesh.
Of course it was, Brooksy. And don't worry, we'll find her, too. Come on back to the house.
But George,
come on. Hey, see what I mean? She'd been rifling the place, going through the desk, frantic, stuff spilled all over.
But this is the Widow Lawrence's house.
Yeah, only what was the witch looking for here?
More important, George, where's the Widow Lawrence?
Well, Doctor, you re-examined the body?
It's the Widow Lawrence, all right. It was her body at the mill, not Miss Abby's.
Uh-huh. Well, Mr. Orrick, now who'd want to murder the Widow Lawrence, richest woman in town, exact opposite of the witch? The widow always kept her mouth shut.
Wait, Mr. Valentine. You understand it was a logical mistake to make about the body and all, don't you?
Of course it was. The witch was generally hated, but no one had anything against Mrs. Lawrence.
I said wait. She was murdered. Definitely murdered. I found where that bullet had scraped the bone.
Well, what do you think, Mr. Orrick?
I don't know. Isn't it possible that in the dark...
No, a person doesn't get hit by a bullet by mistake.
No, of course not.
No. It wasn't that somebody thought it was Miss Abby.
But the children, they saw Miss Abby last night.
Add it up. Don't you see what I'm driving at? We have exactly one suspect for the murder of the Widow Lawrence.
Yes. The only person in town who might have done such an irrational thing as to...
Hey, the witch! I saw her!
Huh?
What's that?
The witch, outside, ran up into her house.
Her own place? Well, come on.
Get away from here! Get away!
There she is on the balcony.
Third floor.
Get away from that door, or I'll jump!
George!
Now, take it easy, Miss Abby. Take it easy. Nobody's going to hurt you.
Hello, Stearns.
I saw her. It was just a second ago. She came up the dark street, tried to duck in there without being spotted.
Yeah.
He's been running since yesterday, been hiding.
My fault. Should have had her locked up long ago.
Get, Dudley! Get away from that front door, or you'll never get this!
Yes, why would she hide, Mr. Valentine?
Orrick, stop it.
But look at her. She must be the one. She hated Mrs. Lawrence. The widow was trying to get her sent out of town.
I said stop it. No, it's not true. You know it's not,
Miss
Orrick.
Abby, I'm warning you.
Take it easy, Dudley. Doctor, it's got to be she killed her.
It's not.
No,
She
cut it
couldn't
out, both of you.
Mr. Valentine.
Hey, Brooksy, get over there. Tell Dudley to calm her down. Do anything, but calm her down.
Valentine, please, listen.
All right, Doc. Let's have it fast. Your conscience has been bothering you all day. Now, what is it?
The Widow Lawrence, about people hating.
Come on, hurry it up.
Well, I never collected a bill from the widow. I did her favors. I loaned her money.
The richest woman in town, huh?
That's what I mean. She never told anything. She was closed-mouthed, never gossiped.
What did she have on you, Buster? What were you hiding?
Oh, nothing much. Just about some gambling when I was younger. But you see, if people knew my
Never mind. You
practice...
said enough, friend. Okay, Dudley, let me try.
But she just stands there.
Sure, Miss Abby's out of her mind now, all right.
Valentine, wait.
Huh?
Look, don't you see it? That's why she came back here. That's why she won't let anybody near. That's smoke.
Smoke. Oh, hey,
Call for the engine. I'll get her myself.
George!
She set fire to her own house.
Oh, George, she'll jump!
No, she won't, Angel. We got to take a chance. We're the ones who are going to get the witch.
George, there's smoke coming from in back, too.
Yeah, from both sides. You get out of here, Brooksy.
Get out of this building. It's built like paper.
Come on, Brooksy. Step on it. I can do it myself.
Well, all right, George, but hurry.
Come on. Hey, Stearns, wait. Where are you? Stearns!
You crazy idiot. I know what I'm doing in a place like this. You don't.
Shut up. Where is she, Stearns?
We're both crazy. Out there. Ought to be able to see her from the...
Wait a minute. Stearns!
Let go of me.
Hell! If she sees us, she will jump.
So what? The batty old banshee? Listen to her.
I'll get you, every one of you! Don't touch me!
Take it easy, lady. I wouldn't come near you for sour apples.
Hey, Valentine, look at that. There's even the gun over there. On her table, see it?
Yeah.
come on, we're being suckers. I know what I'm talking about.
Sure, you're the expert. I know, fire chief. The guy who couldn't spot any indication of incendiarism when the mill burned. Not a trace of it, you said.
Valentine.
And I'm a rank amateur, and I found it. And now the same thing happens all over again. Fire started in several places.
Here, listen, there's the engine.
And you say there's the same gun. Only how do you know? What gun?
Well,
Stearns, your eyes aren't that good. No, you're not going to rescue her. I am. Because you sure were busy today, Stearns. Planting the gun here, trying to find Miss Abby, trying to kill her like you killed Mrs. Lawrence.
Valentine, no. No, listen.
Miss Abby was out at the mill last night, but not as a murderess, as a witness, my friend, a witness who saw you there.
You're just guessing.
Saw you and been scared to death ever since because she knew nobody believed her. She didn't have proof. And if you think I'm wrong, Mr. Stearns, just look at the way her eyes pop every time you move a muscle.
I'm not staying here.
That's the one thing you're going to do. Okay, Miss Abby. Did you hear all that? Now, look, I'm a stranger, Miss Abby. I won't hurt you.
No, don't touch me. I was... Witches, oh...
Hey, Okay, lady. And we'll just let somebody else rescue the fire chief.
Of course, Miss Brooks, that's the way it was. I saw them out there that night at the mill. They were having a fight, the widow and Mr. Stearns.
Only he saw you, too. Is that right, Miss Abby?
Sure, Brooksy. He admitted it. Tell me something, Miss Abby. Let me ask you what you were doing out there. It was midnight, a deserted place?
Well, the spying on them, naturally.
Oh, I see.
They were up to no good, I could tell. Been meeting out there for years, so nobody'd be suspicious.
What was she blackmailing for, George?
Oh, I can tell you. Found someone over at her house. He'd made crooked real estate deals, that's what. And money off the fire department, too.
Oh.
You see, Fred Stearns came from a family of 3 boys. And every one of them has a piece of scandal that you could cut with a...
Look, please. Never mind that.
Well, don't you want to hear about it? And about the other nice ones, too. Mr. Silas Orrick and Dr.
Miss Abby, I'm only interested in putting together a crime.
Well...
Yeah. Stearns fought with a widow and killed her. In passion, he claims. Then he was terrified with a witness running loose. Even if it was a witch... excuse me, I'm sorry. He got his one feeble chance at you when you came back to your own house blind with fear. He knew he'd be caught if he just plain murdered you, so he set your house on fire and set up the alarm, knowing that as fire chief, he'd have first crack at you. He could perform your rescue in the most ungentlemanly manner.
Well, of course. Now, let me tell you about Cy Orrick and Dr.
Miss
Ransom.
Abby, really.
What
they did was very important.
Miss Abby, look, please, can't you understand that everybody has little secrets? Oh, sure, the widow Lawrence, she capitalized on them in a small town, but...
20 years I kept quiet. Never said anything. Besides, every word I said is true.
But look, you overstate it. It gets so that you hate the world as much as it hates you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, why should you be? I see things, that's all. Now, like you, Miss Brooks. I've noticed that between you and Mr. Valentine...
Now you're doing it again. Stop it.
All right. I don't really want to be the witch of Mill Hollow. What about you, two?
Now, George, why should she stop? You go on, Miss Abby, just this once, about us. What was it you were going to say?
Wait.
No!
Before you start out on your vacation motoring trip, you can read all kinds of books and literature about the places you'll visit. But for helpful, up-to-date information as you travel, depend on the men who know the locality, the men at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations. You may want to know whether there's a hardware store, a druggist, or what sightseeing trips you should take in some areas. At all these service stations, you'll get friendly, courteous answers fast. And here, for your convenience, you're always sure of finding restrooms that are clean and tidy. For these restrooms are inspected often, re-cleaned, and well supplied with soap and towels. So remember when you start on your vacation, for local information and convenience, depend on independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Lorene Tuttle was heard as Miss Abby, Ted Osborne as Oric, Joe Duvall as Stearns, Larry Dobkin as Ransom, Gigi Pearson as Mrs. Stearns, and Bill Boucher as Dudley. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, once again, an episode of Let George Do It comes out in a different way than the story was leading us, with a very big surprise twist ending. It does appear that the quote-unquote witch of Mill Hollow was just someone who liked the idea of gossiping and airing dirty laundry, but had just been too timid to actually do it. I like the standard slash Chevron ad towards the end, boasting of the cleanliness of the facilities. It may seem like an odd thing to emphasize, and I've never heard it emphasized in any modern ads, but it definitely is a comfort when you're traveling on the road. We do have a couple listener comments. David writes in to say thank you for our last video theater, The Fatal Hour. Thanks for the movie, Adam. I have been a big fan of the podcast from the start and just wanted to say thanks again. Please keep up the good work. And then just a simple love the show. All right, well, that will do it for today. We will be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. I want to share a listener email about an issue. Melissa says, I love the show and thanks for the answers to my Uyghur question. I'm also quite fond of Mr. Wong. Unfortunately, the latest movie stops at the same place every time I try to view it. Are others having the same problem? Please help so I can watch the last 20-plus minutes of the movie. Thanks so much, Melissa. Well, it turns out that the copy that we uploaded got corrupted somehow. Could have happened in the upload process. But regardless, I went ahead and I re-uploaded the file for you and for all of our listeners and viewers. So if you want to watch Mr. Wong, it is there, and you should be able to go all the way through. Well, this show is brought to you by our listeners and those who supported our recent listener support campaign. Thank you so much for all your support. Here now is today's episode of Sherlock Holmes from October 5th of 1947, The Case of the Missing Heiress.
The makers of Clipper Craft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. And so once again we find ourselves in Dr. Watson's cheerful firelit study. Outside, a cutting October wind scurries the brittle leaves. But inside, all snug and cozy, with his feet on the well-polished fender, sits our favorite host and storyteller.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you.
And which of Holmes' fabulous adventures are we to have tonight, sir?
But tonight it's the case of the missing heiress. A Canadian heiress, to be exact. Pert and pretty as a picture. And with a mind of her own. I can never forget her father's expression when he discovered the compromising situation. There I go, getting ahead of myself as usual. Well, now, don't look so worried, Mr. Harris. I hadn't forgotten. This is where we say a few words on behalf of a very generous sponsor.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. And our sponsor really is generous, in more ways than one. Take the amazing values he gives, for instance. Clipper Craft clothes are just about as fine as can be made, and so modestly priced. I dare say even a Sherlock Holmes would be stumped at how it's done, but it's elementary, Dr. Watson. It's the famous Clipper Craft plan, wherein 924 leading stores from coast to coast concentrate their buying power, assuring you of great savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. As a result, you get the benefit of group buying, plus the friendly personal attention you expect at your own local independent store. Clipper Craft's extraordinary value is obvious once you've worn them. For where else, indeed, can you find expensive-looking suits like Clipper Craft's at only $30 to $40? There are a few deluxe models, too, at $43.75. Top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sport jackets are only $24. Yes, solving your clothes problem is easy this fall. Just take this clue. Compare Clipper Craft with clothes selling for many dollars more.
And now, Mr. Harris, to our story. The case of the missing heiress. Put your boots on the fender and make yourself comfortable.
A perfect combination. A crackling fire to warm one's feet and a hair-raising adventure to chill one's spine.
Sounds rather like one of those confounded hot and cold shower baths that are the curse of this modern age. Now, in the good old Baker Street days, when one made one's daily ablutions in a tin tub that was filled from a pair of steaming jugs...
One got in and out as fast as possible to prevent freezing to death, eh, Dr. Watson?
Only in the winter-time, Mr. Harris, only in the winter. I remember one bright July afternoon in the year... Let me see. Well, never mind, it was before you were out of your cradle. I was splashing about in my morning tub.
I thought you said it was afternoon.
When one shared lodgings and adventures with the great Sherlock Holmes, one frequently took one's morning tub in the afternoon or evening. Now, where was I?
Splashing around in your morning tub in mid-afternoon.
Oh, yes. As a matter of accuracy, I was just removing the soap from back of the ears and giving a not-inspired rendition of a current comic opera hit when Holmes burst in rather unceremoniously. Wandering minstrel, a thing of shreds and patches.
For heaven's sake, Watson, stop that caterwauling and throw on a dressing gown. We're about to have a caller, and I'm sure it means another case.
And why should that interrupt my bath? You're quite capable of handling the first stages of a case by yourself, Holmes.
Not when it concerns a lady in hysterics in a court train. You're much better than I at managing female agitation.
Holmes, what are you raving about?
An elegant carriage has just galloped up to our curbstone. And without waiting for the footman to alight from the box and assist her, a middle-aged creature in full court regalia, complete to the feathers in her hair, bursts out into the street and is even now pulling our front doorbell out by the roots.
Oh, Lord, well...
Aha, Mrs. Hudson's let her in. She's coming up the stairs. Now, will you come out and protect me?
Certainly not.
Very well, then. I shall be obliged to usher her in here.
Oh, no, Great Scott, wait, I'm coming. Good Lord, look at me. A fine way to greet a lady.
Don't worry. Unless I'm greatly mistaken, she's too upset to notice. Here, tie the cord around your middle.
Oh, yes, of course.
And you put your slippers on the wrong feet.
Oh, confound it.
Come in.
Mr. Holmes. Oh, Mr. Holmes, thank heavens I find you at home.
Why, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, Dr. Watson, delighted to see you. Could you give me a glass of sherry? Oh, this is terrible. I'm ruined. And the poor girl... Oh, Mr. Holmes, you must find her. You must.
Of course, Lady Maynooth. But first, perhaps you'd better tell us the name of this damsel in distress and inform us just what difficulty she seems to be in.
That's just it. I haven't the remotest idea. I don't mean I don't know her name. It's Elizabeth. Elizabeth Bascom.
Not Miss Lizzie Bascom, the only child of old Hellfire Bascom, the Canadian Copper King.
That's right, Dr. Watson.
Oh, quite the belle of the season, I gather.
Yes, Elizabeth has certainly been popular. Not that it's made the slightest impression on her.
Yes, perhaps that explains her popularity.
That and her father's millions. But why are you so concerned about Miss Elizabeth Bascom, Lady Maynooth?
It's been my responsibility to sponsor the young lady through her first London season, to see that she makes the proper social connections and, well, her father is bound and determined that she shall marry into the nobility.
I had no idea that George Bascom, more often referred to as Hellfire, was one of your acquaintances, Lady Maynooth.
To be quite frank, Mr. Holmes, I've never set eyes on Elizabeth's father, but, a mutual friend. Knowing that he was anxious to have her received in the best circles, and also knowing that my own financial position has not been too secure lately, I was, shall we say, persuaded to take Elizabeth under my wing.
I hope you made a profitable arrangement.
I did, Mr. Holmes, but I've earned it, every penny.
You mean the young lady is uncouth in spite of her good looks?
Oh, no, Dr. Watson. The truth forces me to admit that Elizabeth is really quite presentable and even lovable when not crossed.
But when she is crossed, she takes after her father?
Exactly. She insists on going for solitary walks, completely unchaperoned. She strikes up an acquaintance with the most unlikely people.
Democratic, eh, Holmes?
It might be considered democratic in an ordinary female. But where a young woman of Miss Bascom's wealth is concerned, it's rather dangerous.
Oh, how true. We've been receiving, not exactly threats, but certainly crank letters ever since it became known that Elizabeth had come to stay with me. But she absolutely refuses to pay heed to her own danger. Says she's been handling situations of that sort all her life, and she refuses to become perturbed about it at this late date. And now it's happened.
What has?
Oh, I finally persuaded her to take an interest in young Lord Weaverbrook. A very suitable match in every way. In fact, her father is arriving on the next boat in order to announce the engagement.
Well, surely that's nothing to be upset about.
Oh, yes, but what is he going to do when he finds his daughter has been abducted?
Abducted? You mean forcibly?
This note was pinned to the carriage seat when I returned and found Elizabeth gone.
I gather from your costume, Lady Maynooth, that you were on your way to Buckingham Palace?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. After considerable manoeuvring, I had arranged to have Miss Bascom received at court. It took a bit of doing, and I'll admit I expected trouble with Elizabeth. However, she fell in with the plan with quite a show of alacrity, even standing patiently for endless sittings of her train and taking lessons in how to make a court bow.
Yes, I've often wondered how one managed it.
Don't interrupt, Watson. Go on, Lady Maynooth. Today, I take it, was the day.
Yes, and more perfect weather one couldn't have wished for. And I must say Elizabeth seemed to be in high spirits. We were well prepared with the usual hamper of wine and sandwiches and cake. You know that interminable wait in St. James's Park.
I've thought often that the sight of the ladies in their full regalia on the way to a court function is one of the great sights of London.
Elizabeth seemed to share your opinion, Dr. Watson. At any rate, she seemed in unusually high spirits as the other carriages crowded around us.
What fun, Lady Maynooth. It's even more exciting than a regatta. All the street musicians and the crowds passing on the sidewalks as if it were a parade. All waving and cheering and calling to us.
Oh, there she goes. That's Lizzie Bascom.
Elizabeth, my dear, one doesn't wave at them. It's not done.
I'm sorry.
Oh, now, cover your flowers with a napkin, my dear. The sun is really becoming rather oppressive.
If you ask me, it's darned hot.
Look at that.
Now, Elizabeth, you mustn't smile back. It only encourages them.
But why shouldn't I smile? I'm so happy.
Just control yourself another moment, dear, and we'll be inside the gate where the crowd can't follow us.
Oh, then we're nearly there.
Heavens, no. It takes ages, even after you're in the courtyard. Yes. Here we go. That's better. Now, let's see what's in our luncheon hamper. I'll admit I'm half-starved.
Oh, no. No, let's wait. I'm still so excited. Oh, Lady Maynooth, look! Who's that handsome man walking among the carriages and sticking his head into some of them?
Oh, dear, I wish he wouldn't. His mother would be so put out if she knew he were out here. But they will do it, all the boys. They say it's much more fun than it is inside.
Lady Maynooth, he's coming this way. Oh, he's going to stop.
Well, so this is the carriage that has been causing all the commotion. No wonder. Hello there.
Hello yourself.
Well, that's refreshing. So this is the beautiful Lizzie who has set the town on its ears. Oh, Lady Maynooth, I didn't notice you at first. You wouldn't by any chance have some smelling salts? The Dowager Duchess of Kiel seemed rather wonky as I passed to Baruch. I wonder if you'd come and take a look at her.
Why, of course, certainly. Let's see, where did I put the smelling salt?
In your reticule, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, yes, of course. I'll be right back. Oh, And Elizabeth.
Yes, Lady Maynooth?
If that gentleman should return, be sure you address him as Your Highness. And that, Mr. Holmes, was the last I saw of Elizabeth Bascom. She was abducted in broad daylight, right there in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace.
You don't think it was done by a prince of the blood royal? They've been known to pull some rather spectacular pranks.
No member of the House of Hanover, Dr. Watson, would write this note. It was pinned to the cushions of the seat, directly behind the box.
May I see Lady Maynooth?
Of course, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, the whole affair was undoubtedly planned in advance.
Well, what makes you say that, Holmes?
The words are printed in ink, large, bold lettering, and the paper's been folded. Furthermore, there's a rather carefully executed dusky palm print in the lower left-hand corner.
But what is the message? What does the note say?
The words of communication of this sort are always the least enlightening part of the epistle, Watson. But just to satisfy your curiosity, I'll read them to you.
Dashed right of you.
We have kidnapped Lizzie. If you know what's good for her, don't tell the cops. Signed, the Black Hand.
Oh, a band of American cutthroats. The words kidnapped and cops are dead giveaway. I've heard of these Black Hand gangs. Poor Lizzie. Men like that are desperate characters.
Oh, dear.
We can only hope her father will arrive in time to pay any ransom demands.
Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, we may be dealing with a band of cutthroats and desperados, but let's not jump to any conclusions, Watson, until we've examined the scene of the crime.
What do you mean you expect to find clues in all that turmoil in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace?
No, Watson, the scene of the crime is much closer than that. It is, in fact, drawn up to our curb. I allude, of course, to Lady Maynooth's carriage.
Oh, I see what you mean. I hadn't thought of that. Well, come along. What are we waiting for?
For you to go and finish dressing, Watson.
Whoa, Jonathan. Easy now, Penelope.
Handsome horses you have, Lady Maynooth.
Thank you. This is Horace, Mr. Holmes. Horace has been our footman for over 50 years.
Man and boy. And that's the truth.
Record to be proud of, Horace, in these troubled times.
Eh?
He's a little deaf, Mr. Holmes. It's his age.
I said you've a fine record, Horace.
I have that.
If you'll open the door, please, Horace. Mr. Holmes is a detective. He'd like to inspect the carriage.
I know who Mr. Holmes is, Mum. Everybody knows Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Horace, when did you first become aware that Miss Bascom was not in the carriage?
What? When her ladyship come back and found your note.
You didn't see or hear anything unusual before that?
I did not. Henry, he's our coachman, you know, had gone off to help Lord Brunsey's man, who was having trouble with his horses. And I had me hands full holding our horses, but I handled them.
Start fellow, Horace.
Besides which, I'm a bit deaf. Not that you could notice, but it keeps me from hearing things.
I'm afraid Horace has been a broken reed in this affair.
What's that?
I said thank you, Horace. Well, let's have a look inside the carriage. Give me my magnifying glass, Watson. Yes, it's interesting. Very interesting.
What have you found, Holmes? Bloodstains?
On the contrary, there's not the slightest indication of a struggle. Either Miss Bascom left the carriage of her own free will, or she was lured out of it by someone she considered a friend. Very significant. Very.
Significant, Holmes, but hardly helpful.
Yes, here is her parasol, neatly furled. Surely, if she'd been attacked, she'd have attempted to use it as a weapon. And the luncheon hamper, neatly placed in the corner. Open up the lid, Watson.
Very well. Hello?
What's up?
The silly thing's empty. Not even a crumb left.
The blackguards. They not only abducted my ward, they stole my lunch as well. What if the pound cake hadn't even been cut into?
The scoundrels. Well, Holmes, I'm afraid we've really drawn a blank. No clues at all.
Not so fast, Watson. Here is a long thread of heavy silk. Lady Maynooth, has Miss Lizzie, by any chance, a garment with a blue fringe in her wardrobe?
Yes, of course. The pelerine that goes over a puce walking suit. But what has that to do with the case? She was wearing full court regalia when she was abducted.
That's what makes it so preposterous, really. You know, you couldn't possibly kidnap a lady in a court costume.
Hello, here's something in the side pocket of the hamper.
Why, that's Elizabeth's guidebook. She was always sneaking off by herself with that under her arm. From the number of times it happened, she must have visited all the sights of London.
Not all, Lady Maynooth. I fancy Miss Elizabeth rather specialized in the British Museum.
How do you arrive at that conclusion?
The rest of the volume's rather stiff, showing very few of the pages have been read. But notice how readily the book opens at the portion describing the British Museum. And here, the paragraphs describing the famous Elgin marbles. That page is decidedly dog-eared.
The Elgin marbles?
Yes.
Good heavens, I'd no idea Elizabeth was a connoisseur of art.
I fancy Miss Elizabeth is a connoisseur of many things of which you had no idea, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, dear, what do we do now? I suppose we'd better consult Scotland Yard.
I rather fancy that a certain Mr. Percy Smithers will prove more helpful in this matter. I suggest that Watson and I pay him a visit.
Percy Smithers? Who in thunder is he?
The famous archaeologist and authority on Greek and Roman relics. He is also curator of the Elgin marbles. Here we are, Watson, the British Museum. Imposing, if somewhat moth-eaten old mausoleum, eh, what?
Well, you needn't point it out to me as if I'd never laid eyes on it before. I had an uncle whose idea of entertaining his various visiting nephews was to trail them through the British Museum.
And you, of course, have never been guilty of escorting your juvenile relatives through its echoing halls.
Well, that is, one must keep up the traditions, you know.
Well, never mind. Open the door.
I can't. It's stuck. Oh, never mind. Here comes an attendant. I say, guard. The entrance seems to be a bit balky. We can't get it open, don't you know?
And why would you? It's been locked up for the night. Closing time was 20 minutes ago.
Oh, then I guess we won't get to see the marbles today, Holmes.
I'm not particularly interested in the marbles, Watson. Guard, can you tell me if Mr. Smithers, curator Percy Smithers, is still on the premises?
Oh, no, sir. He's gone home.
You saw him leave?
Well, he always leaves 5 minutes before closing time.
I don't suppose you can give us his home address.
I can do better than that, sir. There it be, over there. First house across the quadrangle.
The one with the bay window?
That's right.
Thank you. Come along, Watson.
Do you know this fellow Smithers, Holmes?
Only slightly, Watson. I've met him at the Diogenes Club from time to time when I've gone there to see my brother Mycroft. Like all the rest of the members, he's what you might call taciturn.
Oh, the grumpy old professor type, I take it.
Professorial and grumpy, I grant you, but he's certainly not old. In fact, Mr. Percy Smithers looks not unlike the Greek statues he's such an authority on. Only with more clothing, of course.
Oh, yes, I can remember that there were many elderly ladies who got up a petition demanding draperies be put on the marbles when they first went on exhibition. I, of course, consider them perfect as they are.
Then you've seen the Elgin marbles?
Many times.
You recall the statue of Perseus?
Perfectly.
Could you describe his attitude?
I can do better than that. I can duplicate it. He's standing like this.
Not bad, except the positions of the left and right arm should be reversed.
Has your friend took a fit, sir?
Certainly not. I was just explaining something. And stop following us.
I wasn't following, sir. I was just going home to me supper.
Pumpkin?
You recall the face, Watson, of the Perseus statue, I mean?
Oh, naturally.
How would you describe the nose?
Why, that is Grecian, of course.
Wrong again, Watson. That particular statue has no nose at all. It's probably been missing for centuries.
Oh.
Oh, but here we are at Mr. Smithers' door. Ring the bell, Watson. That's a good fellow.
Always giving orders. Well, I still don't understand what information you expect to gather from a curator of the British Museum about a missing Canadian heiress.
You never know, Watson. You never know.
Yes, what do you want?
We've come to see Mr. Smithers, Mr. Percy Smithers.
Well, you can't see him.
I'm sorry to disturb him if he's having his supper, but this matter is rather urgent.
You can't see him because he's not come home. And as for his supper, it's been burnt to a crisp waiting for him. And a fine trout it was, too, that he ordered special.
What a pity. Perhaps you could tell me if a young lady in a blue and puce walking suit has called on Mr. Smithers lately.
Certainly not. Mr. Smithers is a respectable man and a woman-hater besides.
Well, once again we draw a blank. This case seems to lead nowhere but down blind alleys.
Oh, on the contrary, Watson. The fact that Mr. Smithers did not come home for his supper is decidedly revealing.
You don't think he's been forcibly kidnapped, too, by the same outfit that abducted Miss Bascom?
No, I don't think there are any indications of kidnapping. At least I doubt that any force was used.
Of course. How stupid I've been. Mr. Smithers and Miss Bascom have eloped.
Watson, the incurable romanticist.
Well...
No, Watson. A woman-hater, myself excepted, of course, might conceivably change his mind. But no ardent lover would order trout, a single trout for supper, on the day on which he expected to run off with his inamorata.
Well, where does all that get us?
Whatever detained Percival Smithers was unexpected, entirely unexpected. Come, let's go home before our supper's been burned to a crisp.
Oh, Holmes, how can you think of food when you haven't rescued Miss Bascom from heaven knows only what danger?
Whatever danger Miss Lizzie's in, I rather imagine she enjoys. Yes, there's nothing further we can do until tomorrow at 8:30.
Why 8:30?
That is the time they unbar the entrance to the British Museum. Yes, we shall be waiting at 8:22.
When you note the low prices of Clippercraft clothes, you're apt to be puzzled. How do they do it, you'll say? Well, the solution's no mystery at all once you know the facts. What makes them great values is the Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores across the nation. Yes, remember that you buy these famous clothes at your favorite local store, where you're treated as a person, not just as another number on a sales check. These days, practically everything you buy costs more, but not so with Clippercraft. You can select your fall Clippercraft suit at only $35 and $40, with a few special numbers at $43.75. Clippercraft top coats and overcoats, too, are only $30 to $40. Sport jackets, but $24. Selling expensive clothes at inexpensive prices at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
The leading stores in the metropolitan area that bring you Clippercraft clothes are Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th Street, Manhattan, Abraham and Straus, Brooklyn, the Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark, New Jersey, and the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue, Jamaica. These great, courteous, and friendly stores are proud to add their names to that of Clippercraft in the label of your suit, top coat, sports jacket, and overcoat.
Well, it's 8:25, Holmes. Another 5 minutes and we shall know if your guess is right.
I never guess, Watson.
I say, Holmes, isn't that Lady Maynooth's carriage coming down the street at a full gallop?
Yes, Mrs. Hudson must have told her she'd find us here. Yes, here she comes like a ship under full sail.
I say, who's the red-faced little man with her?
I rather imagine Papa Bascom has arrived.
Dead, rat the dead, blasted dead, burn. So, you're Sherlock Holmes. Why in blazes haven't you found my daughter?
I was right, Watson. It is Hellfire Bascom. How do you do, sir? Good morning, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, the most horrible news. The most horrible news.
They haven't found a body.
No, but first of all, when I returned home last evening, my butler informed me that all the sandwiches, the wine, and the cake had been found in the jardiniere of my best aspidistra. The cook is so insulted she threatens to leave.
Yes, I rather suspected that hamper held something more interesting than food when I found that blue thread.
And that's not all. Tell him the worst.
Well, this morning, before I'd even had time to have my morning tea, Lord Bruns's man returned Elizabeth's court gown and feathers. They'd been found in his carriage.
Why, the scoundrel.
Oh, he wasn't in it at the time. He was still at the reception when his coachman discovered the dress.
But this makes matters even worse. The poor girl was abducted in her petticoats.
Yes, the poor girl. Her reputation will be ruined.
Ah, blast her reputation, ma'am. She'll catch her death of cold.
Calm yourself, Mr. Bascom. I think I may be able to return your daughter with both her health and her reputation moderately intact. Yes, they're opening the doors now. If you will follow me.
What? Into the British Museum?
Calm yourself, Mr. Bascom. A little culture is quite harmless, I assure you. Ah, our friend the guard. I believe you're about to unlock the hall to the Elgin Marbles. Mind if we watch?
No, not if it'll give you any amusement. I've been unlocking it 8 years now, and it's never been what you might call fascinating.
Today, I think you may be in for a surprise.
Well, seeing's believing.
Well, it's about time. Where the devil were you last night? Didn't you hear me shouting?
Mr. Smithers, you've been locked in with them marble women all night?
And one that wasn't marble.
Lizzie! in thunder are you doing here?
Yes, and wearing the puce and blue walking suit.
Papa! Well, what do you know? Papa, I want you to meet Mr. Percy Smithers, the famous scientist, and your future son-in-law.
Scientist? I wouldn't let you marry a scientist if he were the last man on earth.
But, Papa, we've been locked up together all night. Think of my reputation.
Well, you scoundrel. You've planned all this. You lured my innocent little girl into this trap.
Really, my dear.
Oh, Papa, don't be silly. I was the one that trapped Percy. I planned it all. I picked yesterday because all the crowds would be at Buckingham Palace and the museum would be empty.
So you threw the food into the jardiniere, packed your walking suit in the food hamper, changed in Lord Brunsey's carriage, and headed for the British Museum.
Yes. The hard part was fascinating Percy so he wouldn't notice it was closing time. As a matter of fact, it wasn't as hard as I'd expected. You see, I suspected Percy, liked me, but I couldn't get him to propose.
But she's too confounded rich.
Look here, my boy. You'll marry her now if I have to get out my old shotgun.
Well, of course, I rather wanted to anyway, but only on one condition.
What's that? Dad blast it.
She has to promise to live within my income.
Darling!
That was all she wanted to know.
And did Lizzie live within her husband's income, Dr. Watson?
More or less. At least if Papa gave her presents from time to time, Percy never knew about it.
How did Elizabeth and her archaeologist get along?
Oh, splendidly. You see, Hellfire Bascom backed several expeditions for the British Museum, and curiously enough, Percival Smithers generally headed them. Did some splendid work, too. So when he was finally knighted and Lizzie became Lady Elizabeth, everyone said she'd more than earned the title.
And now, Dr. Watson, how about a hint about next week's hair raiser?
Oh, next week's is a hair raiser, Mr. Harris, in more ways than one. It concerns a gentleman who had an unusually florid, I might say a crimson head of hair, and how he was hired for a decidedly curious job on that account.
Oh, of course. It's the famous adventure of the Red-Headed League.
How did you guess, Mr. Harris? How did you ever guess?
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, and our stories are written by Edith Miser, with special music by Albert Berman. Holmes is played by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in the adventure of the Red-Headed League. If you wish to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcast in New York, see your local Clippercraft dealer, and he'll tell you how to obtain tickets. Cy Harris speaking for Clippercraft Clothes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I love the live studio audience. That's a nice feature in most of the detective shows. If they've got an audience, it usually wasn't live. The main ones I can think of that did that was The Adventures of Leonidas Witherall, which will be playing later on next season, and also the CBS version of The Man Called X. The Holmes and Watson relationship in this series remains a downside for fans of the radio series. I have to admit I've never heard of a man threatening to bring a woman into the bathroom while he's sitting in the bathtub unless he goes out and meets her. So definitely not feeling that same warmth and charm that went with the Rathbone Bruce episodes, or even the somewhat decent chemistry that developed during the Conway Bruce episodes. But the writing continues to be pretty good. Mike comments over on Facebook that I enjoy the Bruce Conway shows, very well written. And he also commented specifically on The Adventure of the Iron Maiden. This is an awesome episode. So I'm glad you enjoyed those. And then we have this comment from Podcast Alley. It's amazing how well these shows still work. I listened to almost every show during the past year or so, and Adam's comments provide appreciated and helpful insights. Well, thanks so much, Doug. That was Doug on Podcast Alley. And I've kind of observed that. And sometimes old-time radio is described as kind of just a nostalgia thing. And to be honest, I usually, when I listen to radio programs, don't have a great sense of nostalgia because these were before my time. Anyway, when I feel nostalgic, it'll be about shows I watched when I was growing up, and I might even overlook some of the glaringly obvious flaws because it's what I saw growing up. But here, these are just brand new mysteries, and like I said, they hold up very well. Well, we'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And next week, another adventure of Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started, I want to encourage you, when you make your travel plans, to remember to try JohnnyDollarAir.com first. JohnnyDollarAir.com is powered by Priceline, which means you can either name your own price when planning hotel stays, rental cars, and airline tickets, and even more. Or you can choose from several published fares. Plus, you can save even more booking hotel and airline, or hotel, airline, and rental car together in a travel package. Go to JohnnyDollarAir.com. Well, now it's time for today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is the last 1951 episode. It's called The Alma Scott Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Are you from Hartford?
Hello? What was that?
Are you the insurance investigator?
Yeah, that's right.
You're here about the Alma Scott shooting?
Yes, who is this?
This is Alan Swain.
Is this a gag?
No, it isn't a gag.
Well, it's about time you gave yourself up, isn't it?
No, I won't. Because I didn't kill her.
Then why'd you take a run out?
I don't know. I've done everything wrong, but I didn't kill her. I want to talk to you if you'll promise not to go to the police first.
All right, I can do that.
How can we work it so I'll be sure?
Are you still in San
So I'll be... Yeah.
I'll be alone. My word is good.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Alma Scott matter. Expense account item 1, $219 airfare and incidentals between Hartford and San Francisco. For a day and a half, the investigation had taken the form of a search for the man who called me, Alan Swain. 4 witnesses, tenants in the dead girl's apartment house, had seen him running away in the corridor outside her flat immediately after they'd heard the shots. So when this chief suspect phoned about 8 that second night to say that he was innocent and wanted to see me, I was naturally more than anxious to set the meeting up. Later, I wasn't so happy about it. According to arrangements, I cabbed to the corner of Fulton and 26th Avenue, found a photography shop in front of which I was supposed to be picked up, and stood there for about 5 minutes looking at the pictures of some uninteresting brides.
Hello, mister.
Hi.
You marry one of those?
No, thanks. I'm supposed to meet somebody here.
You live in the neighborhood?
No, I'm from Hartford, Connecticut.
And I guess we were fated to meet.
What about the guy that called me? I thought he was going to show up.
He changed his mind. I'll take you to him. Come on, there's a cab waiting around the corner.
I memorized the number of the cab, hoping it might have picked her up at some address that might be useful later. It was a silent trip. The girl with a pretty but rather hard face slumped in her corner, looking almost bored except for the fact that she smoked one cigarette after another. When we left the cab in front of a cafe on a coast highway, she took my arm and led me away from the lights, across the road toward the sand. And there, behind the added protection of a low concrete abutment, I met Alan Swain.
He did come alone. You weren't followed, were you?
Ask him. I've gotten out of the habit of trusting people, so I wouldn't want to say.
I told you my word was good, Swain. Maybe you deserve it, maybe you don't.
What do you mean?
Well, from the beginning, I haven't been able to figure how a guy like you got mixed up with a woman like Alma Scott.
I wish you'd been here a month ago to knock that into his thick skull.
Oh, lay off, Helen. Doesn't do any good now.
It never did.
I didn't kill her, Mr. Dollar. I swear I didn't.
And why have you done everything a guilty man would do? You were seen running away from the scene and getting into your car. You abandoned that. The cab driver remembers picking you up a block away from where it was found and bringing you back to Market Street. Everything you did has been done by scared killers before.
I know I did everything wrong, but I didn't kill her. I wasn't even in her apartment.
To match all the testimony that says you did kill her, can you put your hands on any that says you didn't?
No. When I was in the hall, when I heard the shots, well, if I'd gone on in instead of losing my nerve and running, I could have cleared myself, but I didn't. All I thought of was my own hide. Then when it was too late, I realized the police would never believe anything I said.
What makes you think I will?
I don't know. I'm just asking you to give me a chance.
A chance to do what?
I want to tell you what led up to that night. It doesn't make any difference how I met her or anything. I knew she was no angel, but I never thought she was all bad. And I still don't.
That's what 2 years of college does for you.
Oh, lay off, Helen.
4 years, you'd be 100% blind.
What's your story about that night?
Alma and I were going to leave town. We were going to fly to Mexico and get married. Then we were going to Los Angeles and stay there. She wanted to get away from this town and the people she knew here.
I don't think that's worth much, but is there any way I can check it? Plane reservations?
Yeah, they're under the name of A.J. Hall for next Friday night at 9.
What airline?
Cal, Mexico.
Why the switch in names?
Alma said there might be people who wouldn't want her to leave, and she didn't want it to leak out. We were going to cancel the reservations under that name and make them under our own Friday morning to match our identification at the border.
Who is she afraid of?
I don't know. She wouldn't tell me.
Probably had a big choice.
Do you know who?
New in town, but give me time.
Okay. What's the rest of it, Swain?
Well, she broke a date with me that night. Said she wasn't feeling so good. Then about 10, she phoned and told me she'd changed her mind about going away with me.
What reason did she give?
She didn't give any. She hung up. I started right over to her place. It only took me 5 minutes. When I got there, I stopped just outside her door because I heard her talking to somebody.
What about?
Well, I didn't understand the words, but she was sort of screaming. I started for the door again, and that's when I heard the shots. And I don't know what happened to me, except that I thought whatever was happening was somehow my fault. And I ran. That's all I know.
That's all?
Yeah.
What do you think I can do with that?
I don't know, but it's the truth. There must be a way you can find out who was in there with her.
Don't you have any idea who it was?
No.
Man or a woman?
Why, man. It must have been a man.
Did you hear a man say anything?
No, but there must be some way to find out who was there.
I don't know what it is, but I'll follow it up.
And you won't tell the police?
About meeting you? I doubt they'd believe me if I did. You can phone me if you think of anything.
All right. Are you coming with me, Helen?
Not cricket to pick a man up and then just drop him. Maybe I can lure him into the bar over there so he won't see you leave. Think you can afford me?
Temporarily, yeah. I'm on an expense account.
Hello. A bar or do you want a booth?
Booth, please.
This one over here okay?
Yeah, sure, it's fine.
I'll take your order.
An old-fashioned, I guess.
Rye and soda.
Okay. Rye old and a high with soda.
It's not generally known that Swain has a sister, is it?
Do you think he has?
You're too young to be his mother.
Thanks.
I can't quite see you in that woman scorned part.
I've been there. Can I have a light?
Oh, sorry.
Tell me something. Why do you think a woman might have killed her?
I didn't say that, did I?
You asked Al if he knew whether it was a man or a woman.
It was nothing but wishful thinking. She carried a life insurance policy with a half-sister as beneficiary. We can't find her.
I hadn't even thought of that kind of an angle. It never crossed my mind that she was killed for any reason except what sort of a dame she was.
What kind?
Oh, don't get me started. Hasn't anybody else's name come up? She knew a lot of men.
It's been open and shut against Swain. With that lineup of witnesses, the police certainly have no reason to chase after anybody else. Any ideas?
Yeah. The guy she dropped when she put a leash on Al. His name is Walter Helm. The police know him, if you don't.
You mean you think he killed her?
If he found out they were going to Mexico, I think he would have. Or had it done.
Why didn't Swain tell me this?
Because he didn't know. The dame never bothered to tell him. She was using him for something, and she didn't want to scare him away.
You didn't warn him?
Well, I had a better idea, but things seemed to backfire. Al's got me to thank for this mess he's in. I tipped Walter Helm that they were leaving for Mexico. How did I know Al would go storming up there?
I don't have the faintest notion, but I wish you'd phoned a different detective.
You don't have to follow it up if you don't want to. That's all I've got to say, and I don't want the drink. Maybe some other time.
I didn't wait for mine either. I settled the bill and followed her out. I was in time to see her get into a cab whose number I added to the one we'd come out in. And I waited 20 minutes for another to take me back to my hotel. I had no idea of sharing with the police or tossing at Walter Helm the vague hearsay evidence that had been given me. It seemed to me the logical place to go was back to the tenants in Alma Scott's apartment building. And the developments that followed paint a fairly true picture of that hindrance to accurate investigation, the average witness. I won't bother quoting all four at the address, but Mrs. Swinehart will serve as a composite.
Why, yes, Mr. Dollar. I'm glad that I can be of service. I'll do anything I can.
Thank you, Mrs. Swinehart. I just come from talking with Mr. Robertson down the hall.
Oh, yes.
Didn't you say that he was already in the corridor the other night when you got there?
Yes, he was.
Uh-huh. Well, he seems to think now that you were there before he was.
Oh, but that's not so. I remember distinctly. I went out, and as you know, the Robinson apartment is across and to the rear of the one that woman lived in.
Toward the rear of the building from Miss Scott.
Yes. Well, why, when I went out, the first person I saw was Mr. Robertson, standing there. Then I heard the sound of running up toward the front and saw this man.
He was running toward the street entrance?
Yes, he was.
So you looked very briefly toward the rear.
And saw Mr. Robertson.
And then turned toward the sound?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Are you absolutely positive that it was Mr. Robertson you saw?
Oh, of course I am.
Was anything said?
No. Nobody said anything for a minute. We were startled, you know.
Now, Mr. Robertson remembers that as soon as he came out and saw you, he asked you what had happened.
Oh, well, Mr. Robertson was wrong. He was there when I came out. If he said anything, I didn't hear him.
Could it be that you expected to see Mr. Robertson standing where you had so often seen him, and after a glance that took maybe a second, your mind automatically said, that is Mr. Robertson?
Mr. Dollar, I know what I saw. What's the meaning of this?
It's just possible that there was a second man mixed up in this thing the other night. A man who might have come out of Miss Scott's apartment and instead of bolting toward the front entrance, gone quietly to the rear stairway and out the back.
Oh, dear.
That's why it's so important that you're sure. Could it have been someone else that you glanced at and glanced away from? Someone who left while your attention was on the running man?
Oh, I was sure it was Mr. Robertson.
The second time you looked, it was. We're all sure of that. For that first glance.
I was so sure.
It might be that Swain, who looked so guilty, might not be. It could be the difference between life and death to him.
Oh, now you have confused me. I was so sure. But I shouldn't like to call Mr. Robertson a liar if he truly believes that I was in the corridor when he came out. After all, it all was so sudden and shocking. I suppose anybody's mind could play tricks, as you say.
Will you come and talk to Mr. Robertson with me?
Oh, dear. Yes, I will. But I'd so hoped we'd heard the end of this dreadful thing.
In less than an hour, 4 positive witnesses had broken down in the face of doubt. None of them could swear that there had been a second stranger in the hallway. But neither could they swear that there hadn't been. And none of them had actually seen Alan Swain come out of the Scott apartment. I didn't look forward to telling the police what was happening to their open and shut case without at least something constructive to offer. At 3 that afternoon, I still didn't have it, but I got it when I stopped by my hotel to check for phone calls. The clerk told me that a Mr. Walter Helm was waiting for me in the bar, first table to the left. Mr. Helm?
That's right.
My name is Dollar.
Oh, sit down. What are you drinking?
Nothing, thanks. It's a little early for me.
I don't suppose you know anything about me, but I'll get right to the point. The papers say you're working on the Alma Scott case. I have an interest in it. She was a friend of mine.
Oh?
You've got to do something about finding that maniac that killed her.
If you think you can help, you ought to go to the police.
I don't want to go to the police. I want to talk to you. Where can we do it in private? Your room?
I guess so, if you've got reason to keep it that private.
I have. Come on. Which way do we go?
We will return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Assets, 1 block of wood. Liabilities, more trouble than the legendary paper hanger with a hide. It sounds as though Edgar Bergen had a pretty bad bank balance, doesn't it? But luckily for all of us, he comes back week after week to CBS Radio with his block of wood named Charlie and lets himself in for more trouble. As for you, you're really in the chips when you take in the Edgar Bergen Charlie McCarthy Show, heard over most of these stations every Sunday. Don't miss them tomorrow night on CBS Radio. Now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Go ahead.
After you.
Thanks.
What's the matter, Dollar?
I don't get you.
Yes, you do. You're acting funny, like you've got certain ideas about me.
Your name came up in a conversation last night.
What about?
The killing you've got an interest in. What else?
Who was this conversation with?
You don't expect me to tell you.
We won't get any place this way. Somewhere along the line, you picked up the wrong idea about me. Let's get it straightened out.
I just spent an hour looking you up in a newspaper morgue. That's hardly the way to build towards a fast and strong friendship.
Well, that's business. It's got nothing to do with you and me. I came here to talk about Alma.
Well, let's get it over with then.
I'll level with you. I've been waiting for a call from the police, and it hasn't come. I know they'll pin something on me if they can. They've been trying for years. That's why I want to do something about seeing that Swain maniac picked up.
So it can be pinned on him?
That's where it belongs. I don't care what you think about me. You can't go along with them letting a crazy killer go free because they want to put me away, can you?
I didn't know that's what they were doing.
They will if they get the chance. What did they do with that check? Burn it up?
What are you talking about? What check?
A cashier's check for $15,000. I gave it to Alma. I knew her well enough to know I didn't have to kill her to keep her from going to Mexico with that scum. She got tired of me before, but not so tired a small gift wouldn't bring her back. I knew I was a sucker, but if that was the only way I could keep her, it was all right with me.
That doesn't set so well.
That's the way it was.
Maybe this time money wouldn't keep her.
You're wrong. She changed her mind. She wasn't going.
One thing interests me. How did you know she was going to Mexico? How'd you find out?
Swain's sister phoned me, half crazy about his life being ruined. Said if I didn't do something to stop it, she would.
What day was that?
The day Alma was killed. I went over that afternoon with a check and had a talk with her. That's when she changed her mind.
I've been on this thing pretty much from the beginning. And there wasn't a check.
Then they got rid of it. They're trying to pin this thing on me.
There's a record kept of cashier's checks. If you bought one, you can prove it by going to the bank.
Not if you're Walter Helm, you can't. They'll say I bribed somebody and probably pay a few bucks themselves to prove that. That's one of the things I want you to do. Go to the bank so you'll believe me about that check. I'll pay you. Your own price.
Aren't you afraid they'd make that out a bribe?
They would if they could. But this is legit. You've got a private license. You're for hire, aren't you?
Not by a suspect, after I've been given access to state's evidence.
What kind of evidence? I could really make this worth your while. Just between you and me.
I feel sorry for you, Helm. You're a big wheel. But when you can't count on your money getting you something or getting you out of something, you're lost. Because nobody will take you, anything you say, or anything you do at face value.
Maybe you're right. I'm not complaining, but maybe this is the deal that sets you right. The papers say she was killed by a .32. It hasn't been found yet.
A town like this, it's probably at the bottom of the bay or in the ocean, don't you think?
That's a shame. That .32 is all they need to really pin it on me.
How come?
I gave it to her. It's registered to me.
How do you know that was the gun that killed her?
She kept it in a drawer in the living room. And you didn't find one in the apartment anyplace, did you?
If that's true, you wouldn't hurt yourself by telling the police.
You tell them, not me. I thought I could talk business with you, Dollar. You say you're not for hire. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to post a reward. $20,000.
That might be a smart move.
It'll be legit. Read about it in tonight's papers.
The notice made the front page of the paper I got under the caption, Cooling Murder Sparked by Reward. And strangely enough, it sounded sincere, not slanted toward Swain as I'd halfway expected, but offering $20,000 for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons who murdered Miss Alma Scott. I didn't know how the police fared, but as far as I was concerned, Reaction set in almost immediately. Johnny Dollar.
This is Alan Swain.
Oh? How are you making out?
Now, what kind of a trick is this that Helm is pulling? This thing in the paper.
I don't know. It's got news value, and he must have laid cash on the line. Might even be on the level.
Oh, you're crazy. It can't be on the level. You know that.
He says he didn't kill her.
You talked to him?
Yeah?
What'd he say?
Just that he didn't kill her. I'm surprised you're so upset. According to your sister, you didn't know anything about him.
She told me about it last night. Well, this is a mess, and something will have to be done.
It should have been done a long time ago. Why don't you give yourself up, Swain?
No, I won't.
That would be the best thing to do.
No, I won't. I wish I'd gotten out of town while I could, but I listened to Helen.
Come on in and talk about it, Swain.
No. It's too much against me. The police don't care that I didn't kill her. They don't care who they get just so they get somebody. Well, they'll have to find me.
The case against you isn't as strong as it was.
What do you mean?
The witnesses who saw you outside Alma's apartment, they aren't sure now that they didn't see somebody else, too.
Are you telling me the truth?
Sure I am. That's what I mean. Come in and talk about it.
No, I'll have to think. I'll have to talk to Helen. I don't know what this reward is going to mean. This reward trick of Helm's. I'll have to think, and I'll call you back.
The phone rang again about an hour and a half later. I thought it was Swain, but it wasn't. It was Lieutenant Halloran at police headquarters. He had a confession to Alma Scott's murder that he wanted to talk to me about. It was made, he said, by a woman who claimed she was Alan Swain's sister.
This dame says she knows you, that she met you last night.
I guess she did.
She says you met Swain and her at the beach.
This guy phoned me, Lieutenant. It could have been a crank. It could have been anything. I met them, and nothing they said would have done you any good, so I didn't bother with it.
Bother me with it? With what we haven't had, did you think I'd mind picking up the suspect?
You know my racket. Sometimes I have to give my word. If I get out of the habit of keeping it, I'm going to miss a lot of bets.
Sometimes I wish I was still a private cop and could get away with that stuff again.
You were one?
Yeah, Seattle until 49.
Well, then you understand.
I'm not supposed to.
I tell you, what they gave me just broke down the case you were building. Now it looks like there's nothing to it. What'd she say?
Last night, did she question you as to why you thought a woman might have killed Alma Scott?
Yeah. A beneficiary, the only possible insurance angle in the case, by the way.
She said that when you mentioned that, she figured you had something on her. When the reward was posted, she decided to give herself up.
You sound like you don't quite believe her, Lieutenant.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know.
You think she's protecting her brother?
I said I don't know. You want to talk to her?
If it'll help.
I'll send you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. I hope I didn't put you on the spot by talking about last night.
That's not important.
Well, I was going to ask you to sit down before you.
Move over. I was surprised to hear about this.
I'm surprised, too.
What do you mean?
Oh, it's the whole thing. I never thought I'd go this far. Get rid of people who were hurting me.
Murder is pretty far. You think it was worth it?
I don't know. I had to get him away from that thing. I didn't grind through burlesque houses for 10 years to let that happen.
Been taking care of him that long?
Longer. I'm not decent. Guess I took my mother complex out on him. Sent him to school. Even 2 years of college. I guess it was wrong. I guess I spoiled him more than Mom would have. After going that far, I couldn't stop when that ego got her claws into him.
I don't think you killed her.
Neither did that cop, but I did. When I learned she and Al were going to Mexico, I went up there and had it out with her.
You said you called Walter Helm.
I did, but he wouldn't do anything, so I said I would.
He told me he went to see Alma and that she changed her mind about going.
That's not what she said to me.
What then?
I went there about 9:30. Told her to lay off my brother, and she laughed at me, so I killed her.
Where'd you get the gun?
I had it.
What caliber?
32.
After you killed her, what'd you do?
I just stayed in the apartment for a while. Then I looked out the door, and when the people were out of sight, I left.
Back way?
Yeah.
What street you come out on?
Polk Street.
No, you didn't. The alley doesn't go through to Polk. It turns halfway through the block, goes on to California.
Well, maybe that was it. I wasn't thinking of where I was going at the moment.
I don't think you were there.
Yes, I was. Oh, please, he didn't kill her. He wouldn't have. You don't kill something you love, and he thought he loved her.
It takes only a split second for love to turn into hate.
He didn't kill her. I told you I did.
$1.
Yeah?
There's finished shooting out at Walter Helms.
No! Oh, no!
I thought you'd want to know.
Oh!
Hey, Lieutenant.
Sergeant, things under control?
I think so, sir. He shot his way in. The butler was hit. Helen was waiting for him. We managed to shoot each other.
How are they?
Both still alive, sir.
We'll go in. This man's an insurance investigator. He's all right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Sergeant.
Where's Swain?
Right over there, sir.
Thanks. Swain. Swain?
Swain? Remember me?
Yeah. Did I kill him?
We don't know yet.
I hope I did. He took her away from me. He took her away from me.
How, Swain? He said he gave her a check and she changed her mind about going with you.
He took her away from
We better leave him alone.
He's in pretty bad shape.
A lung shot, I think. Helm is over there.
Hello, Helm.
Never thought this would happen over some dame, did you, Copper?
Take it easy.
What happened, Helm?
I heard the shots at the door. And there he was.
Why'd he come here?
I don't know.
There's only one reason, Helm. You know it, and we know it.
Doesn't make any difference, does it? Sure. I killed her. She was going to leave. I couldn't buy her back. So I stopped her the only way I knew. No scum like he was going to take her away. Nobody was going to take her away.
Expense account item 2, $134 miscellaneous. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $572. Remarks? I was wrong from the beginning. I'm not making excuses for it, but I wasn't as far wrong as the sister. If her false confession had ended it, she wouldn't have taken the rap for her brother, who she thought was guilty, but for Walter Helm, who she was afraid was innocent. It only proves again that you have to watch the words that go above your signature. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can now be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Jack Moyles, Virginia Gregg, Jeanette Nolan, Herb Butterfield, Hy Averback, and Harry Long. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Coverly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
When you read the headlines in Korea, remember this. Industry can produce the bombers, the munitions, but only you can give the blood. And it's your blood that's saving the lives of 97 out of every 100 wounded men. Don't wait till it's too late. Give now. Call your local Red Cross Blood Center for an appointment. And then keep that date to save a life. Get your lap rug and banners ready. Be sure the radio's working right, too, for your CBS Radio exclusive broadcast of the Great Orange Bowl Tilt from Miami, Florida, this coming New Year's Day. And remember, the Peggy Lee Show is heard Tuesday and Thursday evenings on the CBS Radio Network.
back. Well, this was another one of those nobody lived happily ever after Johnny Dollar stories that we're pretty familiar with at this point. I do think that the bit with the witnesses was kind of interesting, though apparently some sloppy detective work by the San Francisco PD that Johnny was able to pick up on. Well, we turn now to listener comments, and even though our listener support campaign is over, I want to say thank you to Steve, who provided a donation. Thanks so much for your support. David writes over on Facebook, I'm a big yours truly Johnny Dollar fan. And then Toby writes over on Facebook, good work time listening. Well, thank you so much for your comments and support. They are really appreciated. A couple closing comments. First of all, be sure to listen tomorrow, and we're going to bring you a great Lux Radio Theater production. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's in 1 hour, thrilling detective mystery I think the world of. It's called To the Ends of the Earth, starring Dick Powell, and really kind of a groundbreaking story when it was made into a film. Also, the podcast awards have begun, and I'd encourage you to nominate our show as well as any other favorites you have over at podcastawards.com. And encourage nominations in the culture/arts category. podcastawards.com. Well, before we get started, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by our listeners through their great support, both financial and otherwise, is greatly appreciated for the great detectives of old-time radio. And we've made it now through 500 episodes, so we're going to celebrate with a grand special. Dick Powell, in the mid to late 40s into the early 50s, had a second career as an on-screen tough guy. But a lot of Powell's performances are lesser known. And we're going to bring you one of those performances that, like many great movies, has kind of been lost by studios who aren't willing to make the work accessible in terms of the movie, but the radio version through Lux Radio Theater is available, and it is a great story. It's called To the Ends of the Earth. It stars Dick Powell as a narcotics commissioner by the name of Michael Barrows. And this is definitely a very different role from his Richard Rogue and Richard Diamond kind of lighthearted portrayal. This one's perhaps even more serious than his Philip Marlowe from Murder My Sweet. This particular film was 2 years in the making. It deals with a very controversial subject in terms of the drug trade. This was the first Hollywood movie to take it on in a very powerful way. There were a lot of people kind of worried about it in terms of how it was going to manage with the production code. So they worked around it, and what they produced was a great globe-trotting detective story that I think you're truly going to enjoy. It was originally released in theaters on February 27th, 1948. This version for the Lux Radio Theater appeared about a year and a half later on May 23rd of 1949. So here now on the Lux Radio Theater, as our 500th episode special, we're pleased to bring you To the Ends of the Earth, starring the legendary Dick Powell.
Presents Hollywood. Lever Brothers Company, the makers of Lux Flakes, bring you the Lux Radio Theater, starring Dick Powell and Signa Hasso in To the Ends of the Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, your producer, Mr. William Keeley.
Greetings from Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. In our play tonight, we take you on a trail of intrigue and suspense that circles the globe. J. Richard Kennedy wrote the story and screenplay of To the Ends of the Earth, and we have the same stars you saw in the Columbia Pictures release, Dick Powell and Signa Hasso. At one time or another in my travels, I think I have visited most of the fascinating and exotic places of tonight's exciting story. And there's one thing I can assure you you'll find everywhere. Lux Flakes. Proof enough that Lux Flakes have made a hit, not just with the American housewife, but in Saigon and Singapore and to the ends of the earth. Here's the first act of our play, starring Dick Powell as Mike and Signe Hasso as Anne Grant.
United States Department of Treasury. To most of us, that means the place that makes the money. That green stuff we scramble to get and then give back so cheerfully. But the Treasury Department's a lot more than that. It's the Coast Guard, Secret Service, Alcohol Tax Unit, Narcotics. That's where I work, narcotics. My name, by the way, is Michael Barrows, and I work out of the San Francisco office. And this is the story of how I learned about an innocent, pretty little flower, the poppy. It's not the kind of poppy you've seen. After this one blooms and the petals fall, the pod is ripe. When you bleed that pod, and the liquid that oozes out is processed, the finished product is opium. One day before the war, my assistant, Harry Hart, brought in a teletype from my boss in Washington, Commissioner Anslinger.
Geez, there's a ship, Mike. A freighter. Been trying to make a landing along the South American coast.
Well, what ship?
No name or markings. It's being driven north. Been spotted off Peru and Mexico. Might try for a landing around here to refuel or something.
Okay, I'll contact the Coast Guard. Just a routine check, but I thought I'd tag along when 2 days later the Coast Guard spotted the freighter. Must have been hiding in one of the island coves and now was making a run to sea. She was still in our 12-mile limit. If she could get out, she'd be protected by international law. The captain signaled her to stop.
She's caught our signal, Barrows, but she's putting on more speed. Go ahead, Mr. Adams. Fire one over the bow.
The shot didn't faze her. We kept on her tail, acting like we meant to board her and see what the bluff would do. She was past the 12-mile limit now. I was alone at the rail, trying to pick up something through the binoculars. Suddenly, I saw a scramble on her deck, the crew and about 100 men. What happened then was almost impossible to believe. They were pushing those 100 men overboard, men who were chained together, dropping into the sea and disappearing. It was all over in less than a minute. I told the skipper what I'd seen. I asked him to catch up with her, at least let me get a better look. The deck was now empty, just the captain on the bridge. A face I'd never forget. Then we turned back and circled the spot where I'd seen the men go down. And out of the water came the only piece of evidence that said I hadn't dreamed the whole thing. A life preserver. It told me that the ship was the Kiramaru out of Shanghai. 6 days later, I was in Shanghai, the office of the Japanese consul.
A most shocking story, Mr. Barrows. But unfortunately, we have no record of a Japanese ship named Kiramaru.
You don't believe what I've told you.
It is strange that you alone should see 100 men murdered.
The Kiramaru was too far off. I saw what happened through the binoculars.
Your word is good enough, Mr. Barrows. We will take action against the captain of the Kiramaru.
So they brought him to trial. He wasn't there to defend himself, of course, and they couldn't be sure that such a man even existed. But they passed sentence.
This court, having carefully considered the testimony, finds the defendant guilty and sentences him to a prison term of 30 days.
30 days? In America, that's what you get for reckless driving.
Such sentence to be carried out when and if the accused is apprehended. Thank you, Mr. Barrows. That is all.
I cabled Anslinger that I was licked and coming home. I was in the hotel, packing my bag, when I had a visitor, a Chinese gentleman.
I saw you in court, Mr. Barrows. I followed your story with great interest.
Why? Who are you?
One who has always thought that the climate in parts of South America was admirably suited to the growing of the opium poppy. The men you saw murdered were slaves intended for such work.
Slaves, huh?
You would recognize that captain again if you saw him?
I would.
3 days ago, a Japanese captain was landed here illegally from a fishing boat. Why would such a man take employment here in Shanghai as a rickshaw runner?
Where would I find him?
We'll get to that, Mr. Barrows. These slaves you say you saw. 6 months ago, in Egypt, a Chinese coolie escaped from a ship called the Kiramaru. Before he died, he gave some information to a British gentleman named Hadley.
Look, if you know anything about that captain...
This also may interest you. The coolie told Mr. Hadley that he was one of 200 slaves brought to Egypt to plant a large field of poppies. Where? For whom he did not know. But he mentioned their name. Hawks. Gene Hawks. The slave said Gene Hawks was a sign, a code, maybe a man, maybe a woman, maybe an organization. He also said that the harvest of that poppy field would be sent here to Shanghai for refining.
This man Hadley, who is he?
The British Narcotics Commissioner in Cairo.
Oh, then it's official information. How did you get it?
I think this will answer all questions. This cablegram, it arrived at my office, but it's for you, from Washington.
You are talking to Lum Chi Chow, Chinese Commissioner of Narcotics. You rushed to Shanghai a little impulsively, but you may stay to do yourself some good. Anslinger.
You see, I too had cabled Mr. Anslinger.
Glad to know you, Commissioner.
Now, about Egypt. 200 slaves plant a poppy field. 6 months later, you count 100 off the California coast. Certain facts begin to come together. Only 100 would be needed to harvest the crop. The others were loaded back on the Kiramaru for South America.
What's that got to do with the man you were going to help me find?
If that rickshaw runner is the captain of the Kiramaru, he's the only link I have between Egypt and the refining of that opium here in Shanghai.
Well, why let the stuff get here? Why not round it up in Egypt before it's harvested?
The British and Egyptians have been searching for months.
And you're expecting raw opium from poppies they can't find to show up here?
And very soon.
How do you know?
From the poppies grown there legally for medicinal purposes, planted about the same time. In Egypt, the harvest must be completed within 5 days, or the pods will rot.
A poppy field that no one can find, a story from a dying coolie slave. You expect me to swallow that?
I swallowed 100 slaves going overboard in chains off the California coast.
Oh, okay, Commissioner. Now, suppose I see that rickshaw runner.
Not until you agree to take orders from me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I only work on cases when I believe in them.
I will compromise. For just 5 days, pretend to believe and follow my orders. After 5 days, the case is finished or there is no case. At that time, the Japanese ship captain becomes your private property.
Okay. Where do we start?
At Sokim Hong, the largest rickshaw station in the city. It is owned by Nicholas Sokim. Let me tell you about
it. The next morning, I called on Nicholas Sokim. Here in America, if you want to go somewhere, you call a taxi. In Shanghai, you call a rickshaw. It's big business. I told Mr. Sokim that my name was Brent, and I was in the rug business. That I was looking for a Japanese who recently went to work as a rickshaw runner.
I've gone through all our records, Mr. Brent, and my assistant, Mr. Grieg, has checked every man we employ. We have no Japanese working here.
Well, thanks, Sokim. You've been very cooperative.
I won't stop looking. If I find anything, I'll call your hotel.
I was about to leave when a young woman walked up, good-looking, well-dressed. Holding on to her hand was a Chinese girl.
I beg your pardon. I've been looking for Mr. Shannon.
Shannon's World Tours?
Yes, I understood they would start from here.
Mr. Grieg?
Yes, sir.
Shannon's World Tours. Have I been here for rickshaws today?
They're scheduled for tomorrow morning, sir.
Oh, I see. Well, thank you very much. Come, Chopin. Come along, dear.
I walked back to the hotel, and so did they. But it was Sokim I was thinking about. I was sure I'd never hear from him again. I was in my room trying to figure the next move when the phone rang. Hello?
This is Sokim. The man you want lives in a rooming house number 17 Barrie Alley.
What's his name?
He goes by the name of Sego. I'm afraid that's all I can do.
Thanks. I waited for over an hour in Barrie Alley. Then I saw him come out. The man I'd come 6,000 miles to find. Captain Sego. It was easy following him. He led me straight back to my own hotel, to the desk clerk.
Mr. Shannon is expecting me of the Shannon World Tours. What is his room number, please?
506, sir. Elevators to the left.
Shannon World Tours. This morning, it was the good-looking girl who had mentioned Shannon World Tours in front of Sokim.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I was just wondering if any American tours happen to be in town.
Yes, sir. Shannon's World Tour.
What's his schedule?
Here's one of his folders, sir. It's on here.
Big crowd?
No, small. 7 or 8 Americans, sir.
10 minutes later, I tailed Captain Sego back to 17 Barrie Alley, itching to lay my hands on this murderer. But he wasn't my private property yet, not for 4 more days. Back in Lum's office, we looked for Shannon's pedigree in the narcotics code book. It was Lum who spotted him.
Here's your man, Mr. Barrows. A little younger than the photograph in the travel folder, but here he is.
Only here he's listed as Shay. Shay instead of Shannon. What's it say about him? World travels, huh? A dodge to make narcotic smuggling easier.
Tomorrow morning, join that party of tourists for the day. Memorize their faces.
Well, there's one I have memorized. The good-looking girl who came to Sokeem's this morning.
Let's hope she'll be there tomorrow morning, too.
A pleasant day's work ahead, a tour of Shanghai, a chat with my American companions as we drove along and time to study every face. There was a stop at the Willapatan Tea House for refreshments. My first real chance at those two I'd seen yesterday looking for Shannon, the girl and her young Chinese companion. Well, it's rather crowded in here, isn't it?
What? Yes. Yes, it is.
Oh, do you mind those flowers? Isn't that a Rosa chinensis? You see, I go in for roses. My name's Brent. I travel for a rug firm.
How do you do?
Your little friend here, she seems so unhappy. I hope she isn't ill.
Chupin speaks English.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Well, it's quite all right. You see, the Japanese bombed and captured Chupin's village. They took her family away, and it happened only a few weeks ago.
Oh, I see. Chupin, huh? Well, now, that's a nice name. I think I'll just call you Princess. I didn't get your name.
Her name is Mrs. Anne Grant.
Oh. Well, it's a nice tour, isn't it, Mrs. Grant? You're going all the way to the States, Princess?
Yes, to San Francisco.
Well, what do you know? That's my hometown. I think you're both very lucky to be going there.
Oh, Mrs. Grant isn't going.
Oh? You're staying in China?
Yes, I am. Chupin, come along, dear. I promised Miss Heiress that we'd...
The well-known brush-off. Interesting and a little mysterious, this Mrs. Grant. And exactly why was she staying in China? Well, what little I learned went into my pocket notebook. I couldn't risk remembering every minor detail, and minor details might prove very important. Our last stop for the day was at the temple, and when we came out, it didn't seem too unusual that the wheel of my rickshaw should break down, or that Shannon himself should offer to walk me back to the hotel.
Tell me, Mr. Brand, didn't you lose something this afternoon? This is yours, isn't it, this notebook?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
What did you say your business is?
Oriental rug.
Strange you'd make these notes about my guests. Or are you really a census taker?
I have no idea. Let's get back to the street, huh?
Oh, we'll save a lot of time down this alley. Now, what did you want those names for? Talk fast, mister. Who are you?
Now, before you get tough, Mr. Shea, listen. You've been caught before. This time you'll do 5 years unless you talk.
About what?
A ship named the Kiramaru.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I know who you are, and I'm not going to let you pin a 5-year stretch on me.
They appeared out of nowhere. 3 or 4 Shay's little helpers. When I came to, I was lying on a dock at the waterfront. It was almost dark. Bending over me was Sokeem's assistant, Mr. Grieve.
You'll be all right, Mr. Brent.
Oh, great.
You're a very lucky man. Mr. Sokeem had a hunch this might happen.
Well, what did happen?
Shannon was going to kill you. I followed him here. When he resisted, well...
Shannon's dead?
Yes. He was wearing this belt. It's unrefined opium. Mr. Sokeem knew he had it somewhere.
How?
He called on Mr. Sokeem before your tour started. Mr. Sokeem told him he had no interest in smuggling narcotics.
Then what?
Well, Shannon said this shipment was perfectly safe. Straight off a Japanese boat.
Did he say where it was grown?
I believe he mentioned Egypt.
Where in Egypt?
Oh, I don't know, sir. I have an automobile, Mr. Brent. Perhaps I'd better take you to your hotel.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to stop at a friend's first. Mr. Lum, 25 Peacock Lane.
Perhaps I'd better wait for you in the car, Mr. Brent.
No, I'd like you to meet Mr. Lum. And you can start telling me the truth.
All right. I don't understand.
Well, maybe this will help you understand.
Mr. Barrows.
Hello, Lum. You better give me a hand. All right, Grieg. Now get up and go in. I had a very interesting tour, Lum.
So it would seem.
You hit me. Why? Why?
Yes, Mr. Barrows. Why?
Well, listen to this. I tangled with Shannon this afternoon, was knocked cold, woke up miles away on the river. Shannon's dead, at least Mr. Grieg says so, and that much I believe. Mr. Grieg, under Sokeem's orders, saved my life. Mr. Sokeem did more. Here, take a look at this.
Raw opium.
Grieg says he found it on Shannon. Opium from the Kiramaru from Egypt.
That's what Shannon said.
You heard him say it? Well, did you?
Yes.
You're a liar. The opium couldn't have been from Egypt because poppies can't be harvested until the petals fall, and they fall this week, today maybe. The opium we're looking for is still in Egypt.
Shannon got that from the Japanese captain.
He got nothing from the Japanese captain. Sokeem told the captain to lead me to the hotel yesterday. I was supposed to hear him say, "Mr. Shannon's room, please." That was to throw me off, to pin suspicion on Shannon. And then Mr. Sokeem saves my life. Throws me some narcotics that could have been Shannon's or anybody's.
Then you think Mr. Sokeem is interested in narcotics?
He's got to be. And 10 to 1, that refining equipment you're looking for is somewhere in Sokeem's rickshaw station.
I'll phone the police. They can pick up Mr. Grieg, arrest Captain Sego, and later we'll raid Sokeem's place.
Later? Why not now?
Because first I want to know more of what happened today. This way, Mr. Grieg.
Well, that's about it, Lum. Here are the names of everyone in the party.
It will be well to question them all.
Except Mrs. Grant.
Why not?
Well, I told you that Shannon's tour is leaving Shanghai, but Mrs. Grant is staying. That means she couldn't be tied up with him.
But she could be tied up with Sokeem, waiting the arrival of the opium from Egypt.
Then if she's half as smart as you think she is, she won't talk. You'll get nothing out of her. But I think I can, through the Chinese girl.
Good.
Now, about Sokeem's place. You ready to raid it?
Yes, now I am ready.
While that's going on, have the police pick up Mrs. Grant. Be sure they leave Chupin in the hotel.
You are not coming with me on the raid?
No, I think I'll learn more in the hotel with Chupin.
Before we bring you Act 2 of To the Ends of the Earth, here's Libby Collins, our Hollywood fashion reporter.
You know, John, girls who are going to college this fall, or who are in college now, will get a lot of good ideas from Jean Peters' wardrobe, and it happens every spring.
And will chemistry professors get ideas about becoming baseball players like Ray Milland?
Well, better get Jean's opinion on that. She was a co-ed herself not so long ago. Incidentally, she's just left for St. Louis with other stars from the studio for the picture's premiere on the 26th. She plays the daughter of the president of the university. So 20th Century Fox made a careful check of what the well-dressed co-eds are wearing before designing Jean's costumes. Her wardrobe for It Happens Every Spring includes lots of lovely blouses for her suits and, of course, separate sweaters and skirts.
Sounds like a Luxable wardrobe.
It is, and so true to college life. Lux Flakes are as popular on college campuses as they are in Hollywood studios.
That's easy to understand. These tiny diamonds of Lux whip into suds fast. And what girl isn't always in a hurry?
The suds are wonderfully thick and rich, too. So much college washing is done in the bathroom basin. Girls appreciate the way Lux Flakes float away soil with gentle squeezing. Besides, allowances can't stand expensive cleaning bills. So Lux Flakes are the rule for everything safe in water alone. Blouses, sweaters, nice cottons, and washable prints.
An easy way for any woman to keep things fresh and attractive, especially in warm weather. Lux Flakes are another fine product of Lever Brothers Company.
With Lux Flakes Care, you can freshen things in no time. And your favorite washables stay lovely far longer.
Now, your producer, Mr. William Keeley.
Act 2 of To the Ends of the Earth, starring Dick Powell as Mike and Signe Hasso as Anne Grant.
And so while Lum and the police were raiding Sokeem's rickshaw station and Mrs. Grant was being held at headquarters for questioning, I went to her rooms at the hotel. The Chinese girl, Chupin, opened the door.
Oh, Mr. Brent.
Well, hello, Princess. Is Mrs. Grant in?
Oh, she went out. She was very upset. The tour is not sailing to America.
Yes, I heard about that. I thought I could help you get to San Francisco some other way. I bet you've known Mrs. Grant a long time, huh?
Only a year, Mr. Brent. She was my governess back home in Panyin after her husband died.
Oh, that's too bad. I suppose Mr. Grant was a teacher or a missionary?
An engineer. They were married in America. Mrs. Grant used to tell me all about...
Good evening.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Grant. I was just talking
Oh, Chopin, I'm sorry, dear, but I forgot to stop in the lobby. Will you see if there's any mail, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, dear. And now, Mr. Brent, what are you doing here?
Weren't you called at the police station about Shannon?
Why, yes. They sent me back here to get my papers.
Well, I knew Chopin was alone. I thought I could cheer her up a little. Strange kid. She can't be more than 13 or 14. Yet time...
I know. At times, she looks much older. Yes, that's what death and bombs will do to a child.
Suppose I could help you, Mrs. Grant. How about 2 tickets on the Clipper?
Oh, it's very kind of you, but I'm not going to America.
You want to stay in China?
Yes, I do.
Well, I guess you have your reasons.
The children of this country have a right to live.
You're kind of young to bury yourself in Pandian.
What else did Chopin tell you, Mr. Brent? Something about my husband, perhaps?
She mentioned him, yes.
He was killed by Japanese bombs while doing a job for China. I intend to finish that job as best I can.
Why not go back home and tell Americans about China? Raise barrels of money for thousands of Chopins. Or maybe there's something else. You don't want to talk about it.
What makes you think so?
Because if Chopin means to you what you say she does...
After a point, she doesn't. And the sooner she realizes...
I'll take it. Hello?
It's rather important that you come to Sokim's, Mr. Brent. That is, if you finish...
I'll be right over. Oh, that was those people who sent for you, Mrs. Grant. And while I'm there, I'll try to make some arrangements. I'm sure everything's going to be all right.
Thank you.
We'd made a good guess about Sokim. Upstairs, over the shed where the rickshaw drivers lived, was equipment enough to refine half the opium in Asia. Only Mr. Sokim wasn't there to tell us about it. He'd swallowed poison. Mr. Sokim was dead.
So, actually, we have learned very little, Mr. Barrows. He died before I could question him.
Oh, we should never have moved in on him. We should have waited until the opium from Egypt had arrived.
Once you knocked Mr. Greig down, there was little else we could do.
Yeah, I know. I made a bad mistake.
Oh, in my time, I made a few myself. Sokim was afraid.
Afraid of what?
Mr. Barrows, for years there's been an organization in China operating in drugs, backed by the Japanese High Command. Why? Because drugs eat away a people's will to resist, and conquest becomes easy. In the brains of this organization, citizens of all nations, fanatical Sokims who believe in conquest, the degenerates who can be bought to do this filthy work for the Japanese High Command. But let someone fail. Sokim failed. Suicide.
Sokim's death will warn the others. That raw opium will never come here now.
I am sending Sokim's papers to Cairo immediately. At their possibility, they will yet find the poppy field. It is my hope that you will take them.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lum. I know it was my blunder that finished the case here, but it is finished.
What about Mrs. Grant? For a year and a half before coming to China, she was in Egypt. The visas and dates on her passport leave no doubt of it.
Look, now, any decision on my going to Egypt would have to be made by my boss.
Mr. Anslinger and I have exchanged several messages.
Oh.
He's quite willing that you should go.
One step ahead of me right down the line.
Excuse me. Yes?
This is Captain Singh. We have just released Mrs. Grant.
Thank you.
She wishes to leave at once for San Francisco with suit planned.
One moment, please. Mrs. Grant wishes to go to San Francisco. She told you that?
She told me she was staying in China.
Well?
Let her go. Our men there can watch her the moment she lands.
We think she should go, Captain.
I was met in Cairo by the Egyptian and British Narcotics Commissioners, Alma and Lionel Hadley. Hassam went to work on Sokim's papers while Hadley broke the unhappy news that this was the last day of the poppy harvest. All he was sure of was the route the opium would take when it left Egypt.
Take a look at the map, Mr. Barrows. We know that poppy field is somewhere in this area. If so, the only logical way out of Egypt with the raw opium would be across the Suez Canal. And the nearest crossing of the canal is here.
And if all the harvest hasn't been moved, what's left will go tonight.
I'm afraid so.
Did you check on Mrs. Grant?
Yes, she and her husband left Cairo 10 months ago. No record of where they went.
Well, I've examined Sokim's papers. One lonely clue, gentlemen. This letter. Not the contents, but the handwriting.
What about it, Hassan?
It's written in English, but the man who wrote this letter first learned to write in Arabic. Certain characteristics. I examined the paper itself, made in France.
French paper isn't sold in Egypt.
But it is sold in the French mandate, such as Lebanon.
But I thought the poppy field was in Egypt. Where does Lebanon come in?
Lebanites. We have many wealthy Lebanites with estates in Egypt, especially in the suspected area.
Suppose we run the film again.
Why not? We have motion pictures of some of the Lebanon estates, Mr. Barrows. Let's look them over.
This is the last reel, Mr. Burroughs. The estate you're looking at now belongs to Ali Yusuf. 10 acres of roses grown for perfume.
What kind of roses?
They don't look like much from the air. Rosa Sancta, probably.
You're a rose fancier?
Oh, I certainly am. I'd like to get a cutting of that Rosa Sancta to take home with me.
This next estate belongs to Jafar Pasha. Maize and cotton, easily identified.
And now we move to the uplands.
Uplands? How do they get the water?
Piped over from the Nile, drawn up by pumps.
That's a bit of engineering.
And now this estate is at the edge of the Bayadea Plateau, the property of Binda Shah. 30 acres of roses for perfume.
Artificial irrigation, huh?
A very modern job was done up there about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't remember that engineer's name.
I'm afraid not.
Cheer up, Barrows. Perhaps what we all need is a drink.
How far is it to this Binda Shah's place?
3 hours by car.
I'd like to have a specimen of that rose.
Binda Shah would never let you go near the place.
It's strictly against Muslim law. That's why we had the photograph from the air.
Why couldn't I climb one of those cliffs?
You're not serious.
Why not?
Well, even if you didn't break your neck climbing, Binda Shah would break it for you when you got to the top.
Oh, it'd be dark by the time I got there. Mind if I borrow your car? Nothing could prevent Hadley and Hassan from coming with me. They knew it was more than a rose I was after, and these were the last desperate minutes of the last day. They were ready to follow even this wild hunch of mine that the irrigation system at Binda Shah's had been installed by an engineer named Grant. It was a clear night, and once at the top of the cliff, we saw the almost endless line of roses.
We're getting too close to the house.
There may be dogs. We'd better leave.
We found exactly nothing.
What did you expect to find?
I don't really know. But an engineer doesn't come all the way from the United States just to install a few pumps for growing roses. Unless...
Oh, wait.
Alice, where you going?
I had to take a look at that irrigated soil. It had just been cultivated, too. My hunch was leaping around like mad now, and then all of a sudden, the almost unbelievable answer. There in the earth, almost covered, a battered stem that had been hoed under just a little while ago. Not a rose stem, but a stubby one, with a swollen pod at the end. Stem of the opium poppy. Poppy stems, planted, grown, and harvested under the rose bushes.
No wonder we couldn't detect anything from the air. Well, now we know how the opium might be going through. And perfume jars, cartons of rose petals.
I should be at the Suez crossing telling my men what to look for.
Suppose the last of the harvest is still here?
Take the car, Hassan. Get to the crossing.
What about you?
I'll keep looking here.
I'll stay with you.
I'll be at the crossing in 30 minutes. I'll send some men back to watch for you. Here, take my gun.
Thanks. Well, let's go, Barrows.
We finally found what we were looking for. A barn that held the entire secret. In it, stupefied with opium, were what remained of the 200 slaves brought to Egypt 6 months before on the Kira Maru. Also in the barn were the vats where the gummy juice of the poppy plant had been turned into raw opium.
May I ask what you are doing here?
Binda Shah.
Yes.
We've been learning about the harvest of the opium poppy.
Your knowledge comes late. The harvest left here an hour ago. Huna. I did not come alone, gentlemen. I am well protected.
We didn't come alone either. Your entire estate is surrounded.
The best thing you can do is to tell us where the opium is going.
I have completely forgotten.
Order your men to put down their guns.
Hap, Tovka, Alaladi.
The men lowered their guns and disappeared. It seemed incredible that Binda Shah should surrender so readily. We ordered him ahead of us and walked back toward the cliff. Suddenly he started running straight for the cliff and over it. A second fanatic like Sokin, paying with his life for faith and taking all information with him. By midnight, we were at the Suez crossing, only there wasn't a sign of the opium. At dawn, Hassan's men came back from Binda Shah's where they'd searched the estate. Then the Shah's private papers yielded nothing. But out of the pump house came an interesting item, an engineer's logbook. In the book was a snapshot.
Well, who is she, Barrows? You seem to recognize her.
Mrs. Grant. This logbook belonged to her husband.
Wait, Barrows!
Sam?
It sounds exciting.
The opium scar.
That's not news, Hassan.
But I think I know where it is. Now, who has left this crossing tonight?
According to the customs men, no one's left here since 6 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
What about that camel driver I told you about?
But you said his camels weren't carrying anything.
No, nothing on their backs. One native driver, 10 camels.
Headed for Beirut, you said.
The camel driver said the price of camel hair and hides has just gone up. He's taking them to a slaughterhouse.
Then what makes you think...
I just telephoned Beirut. Actually, the price of camel hair and hides had gone down. The driver was lying. It is my opinion that the opium is inside the camels, forced down their throats in some sort of containers that will be removed at the slaughterhouse in Beirut.
Fantastic.
Any more fantastic than poppy plants growing under roses?
I suggest we get to Beirut, gentlemen, and wait for the camels. Hadley put a couple of men on the trail of the camel driver. We took over again near the outskirts of Beirut. But this was French territory, and helping us now was Emile Aurissier, the French narcotics chief.
It is vital, monsieur, that the camel driver never know that we suspect.
How can we examine his camels without his knowing it?
He will find hundreds of camels at the edge of the city, and men from the Department of Sanitation checking the beasts against disease. His 10 camels along with all the others. What he will not know is that only his camels will be fluoroscoped.
He'll get suspicious.
Undoubtedly. As a result, there will be no delay at the slaughterhouse. Now, I suggest you wait at the hotel. I will have the information you need sometime this afternoon. Well, monsieur, I can now report. In the stomach of each camel were many metal cartridges. You may be sure they contain the opium grown on Binder Shah's estate. An estimated $100,000 worth in each piece. $1 million all told.
Where were the camels taken?
To a slaughterhouse owned by a man named Agassiz. 40 minutes ago, a truck left the slaughterhouse for the docks. It carried 3 bales for shipment.
Then let's get to the docks. We've got to know their destination.
One of my men already has that information. The first bale went to a Mediterranean freighter addressed to Monsieur El Lexator, Athens, Greece. The second will go aboard a French ship bound for Marseille and someone named Delier. The other bale went to a Dutch freighter addressed to N. Brandstatter, Havana, Cuba. We can be fairly sure, monsieur, that $1 million worth of opium is in one of those bales.
That night at dinner, we celebrated the first solid clue that might take us eventually to the leader of Jean Hawk's ring.
That woman, Monsieur Bell, the one in Shanghai. You told me before you would show me her photograph.
Oh, yes. Here you are, Laurissier. We found it in Grant's logbook.
Yes, very beautiful.
Intelligent, too. Knew there were poppies growing at Shah's. Much too intelligent to mention it.
And she is still in Shanghai?
No, she's not. Oh, by the way, Laurissier, that man you're sending to Havana tomorrow, that's on my way home. I'd like to follow that bale myself.
Another hunch, Barrows?
No, Hadley, this time it's information. I had a cable today from my office in San Francisco. Here, read it.
Anne Grant left San Francisco a few hours after arrival. Destination, Havana, Cuba.
We pause now for station identification. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
After a brief intermission, we'll continue with Act 3 of To the Ends of the Earth. Our special guest tonight is beautiful Lola Albright. Lola has just been handed a new contract with Columbia Pictures.
I'm so thrilled, Mr. Keeley, I can hardly believe it.
You know, they tell me at Columbia you've been a very apt pupil.
Well, yes, I did study hard, but what I appreciated most was the opportunity of going on sets. That's how I happened to see that terrific earthquake scene for Lust for Gold, and I certainly was impressed.
Really a great picture. You know, Glenn Ford does a remarkable job with an unusual characterization. There's something really different what he's done heretofore on the screen.
And I loved Ida Lupino in the lovely costumes of the 80s. And what a sizzling performance.
And all those period costumes for Lust for Gold, they must have given the wardrobe people a headache when they were on location in Arizona.
The wardrobe mistress mentioned that, but John Kennedy will be interested to know that the company took along plenty of Lux Flakes. Miss Lupino's embroidered stockings, as well as her own nylons, survived beautifully.
A matter of dollars and cents economy, Lola.
I can believe that. My own nylons are washed with Lux Flakes, and they last for ages.
You may not realize it, but that simple care is giving you twice the wear. If you were to use strong soaps or rub nylons with cake soap, they would go into runs a lot sooner. Strain tests prove that.
To Lux them is certainly easy.
Just about the easiest care in the world. These tiny diamonds burst into suds the instant water touches them. And in no time at all, these thick, rich suds make stockings fresh and trim-fitting as ever. Help protect the colors, too. Thank you for coming tonight, Lola Albright. Here's your producer, Mr. William Keeley.
The curtain rises on the third act of To the Ends of the Earth, starring Dick Powell as Mike and Senior Hessel as Anne Grant.
I was sure that the bale containing the opium was the bale being shipped to Cuba. Or, why was Mrs. Grant going there? That's what I told the narcotics commissioner in Havana, Alberto Berardo.
It should not be difficult, Senor Barros. I will let you know where she is, what she does, and whom she sees.
Oh, one person she will be seeing, I think, is a fellow named Brandstatter. Know him?
A manufacturer of art supplies, I believe. Brushes, things like that.
Getting the camel hair for his brushes from the Near East. Only this shipment contains $1 million worth of unrefined opium. Well, let him refine it. Let him ship it out with his artist supplies.
And then?
Then I follow it.
$1 million worth of narcotics, and all I do is help to see that it gets safely away?
A lot to ask, huh?
Yes, senor. A lot to ask.
Berardo worked fast. Before evening, he told me that Anne Grant had reached Havana with Chupin. 2 days later, the Dutch freighter arrived, and the bale of camel's hair was now in Brandstatter's possession. That night in my room... Yes?
Berardo. Well, they've just booked passage. Brandstatter, Mrs. Grant, and Chupin. The steamship Cardillo for New York.
The Cardillo? Well, there's no ship in port called the Cardillo.
She docks here tomorrow, senor. Sails at noon the following day. I will have a report soon on every piece of freight she is taking aboard.
Good. See you here in the morning. For 24 hours without pause, Berardo and his men checked and rechecked the cargo of the Cardillo. Absolutely nothing was being shipped by Brandstatter. Not a ray of hope until 3 hours before sailing time. And then some last-minute cargo arrived on the dock. Artist supplies from N. Brandstatter, addressed to a man named Sharp, Maiden Lane, New York. A ray of hope that made no sense. There wasn't a chance the opium was in those boxes. The most routine checkup in the New York Customs would reveal it. It was too late now to do anything but let Brandstatter get the opium on board his own way and take our chances of finding it. But right then, a couple of worried men got lucky. One of Berardo's lookouts on the dock came up to report a very ordinary incident. The truck which had delivered the boxes of artist supplies had stalled on the wharf. But the lookout, Hernando, had been curious.
And while one of the men worked on the motor, a second man was tearing the wrappings of some packages in the back of the truck.
Where did it stall, Hernando?
Near the kitchen supplies being loaded on the ship, senor. Cartons of butter. And when the wrappings came off Brandstatter's packages, that's what they were. 3 cartons of butter exactly like the others.
Now we were getting somewhere. 3 cartons of butter containing $1 million worth of opium were stored in the ship's refrigerator, where one of Brandstatter's men, a member of the kitchen crew, could watch it carefully. An hour before sailing time, we saw them go aboard, Mrs. Grant, Chupin, and Brandstatter. According to plan, there would be a vacant cabin for me on sea deck, and waiting for me, now posing as a ship's steward, was Hernando.
Do not worry, senor. That refrigerator will be watched constantly from here to New York.
How? By whom?
During nights, by the baker, an old friend of mine. During the day, the ship's butcher and the assistant chef.
Where's Brandstatter's cabin and the others?
On the upper deck, senor. B deck.
Before dinner, Hernando had news for me.
Brandstatter is no longer on B deck, senor. He complained about his cabin. He's taken the one right across the corridor from you.
Then he knows I'm here.
No, I don't think so. He inquired about all the cabins. I merely told him this one was vacant. I think he believed me. He's at dinner now, and I'm moving his luggage.
Empty cabins aboard ship don't have locked doors. My door was locked. Sooner or later, Brandstatter would have to know why. Sooner or later, he'd...
Oh, I beg your pardon. How stupid of me.
Yes?
They gave me the wrong key. I simply went to the number like a sheep. I'm very sorry. I don't believe we have met.
I came aboard ill.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear it. Please forgive me.
Score for Brandstatter. He'd never stop now until he knew exactly who I was. A good chance I was a narcotics agent. An outside chance I'd been on his trail since China. 1,000,000 to 1 shot Mrs. Grant had seen me there, would know who I was. He'd have to bring Mrs. Grant to see me. But no move by Brandstatter until the following evening. We were off Cape Heiress, just 24 hours out of New York. I could hear the ship's orchestra and the passengers, all very gay and friendly. What more perfect time for a man of finesse to visit a poor shut-in? And that's just what happened. Come in.
Good evening. We have brought you a little cheer from the captain's table. Oh, and may I present?
Hello, Mrs. Grant.
You know each other?
Why, yes. Mr. Brand and I...
What a charming coincidence.
We met in Shanghai, Mr.
Brandstatter. You seem to be feeling much better tonight.
Much better, yes. I'll be up and around tomorrow.
Good. Well, I really should be going back to the party. Oh, why don't you stay a while, Mrs. Grant? I'm sure you will have a lot to talk about.
I'm sorry you've been ill.
No, just a touch of fever. I picked it up in Egypt. I thought you went to San Francisco.
I did. But you see, Chupin's uncle, Mr. Sue, had gone to Havana on business. He insisted that we meet him there.
And this Brandstatter, a ship's acquaintance?
Yes, a business friend of Mr. Sue. He's been very kind to us.
Oh, see. Charming fellow. You're looking very well, Mrs. Grant.
Oh, thank you. I feel wonderful. Mr. Brent, remember the things you said to me in Shanghai? I mean, about coming back to the States. I know now how right you were.
Oh, good. Fine. Well, I don't want to keep you from the party.
You sure you can't join us?
Tomorrow. We'll have a big day tomorrow.
All right. Good night, Mr. Brent.
In the morning, I joined Mrs. Grant and the others. A happy, chatty little group. Inseparable by lunchtime. Chupin gave me a little pencil sketch of herself that one of the passengers had made. The artist said there were lines of suffering in her face. Mid-afternoon, less than an hour from New York. But nothing was worrying Nicholas Brandstatter or Anne Grant. I couldn't understand it. What if Brandstatter had known who I was long before I got to Havana and had set me on this false trail while he got the narcotics on board some other way? This panic of mine was growing every minute. We were at the bar now, having a drink.
Someone said we'd be taking on the harbor pilot soon. Maybe I better take Chupin's baggage.
Oh, not yet, Mrs. Grant. We have plenty of time.
Another drink, Mr. Brent, to our continued friendship.
Then suddenly there was a commotion astern, a flurry of excited voices and the faint odor of something burning.
Nothing to worry about, ladies and gentlemen. If you smell smoke, there's a little grease fire in the galley.
Mrs. Grant, fire.
It's all right, dear. You heard what the officers said.
Incidentally, Mr. Brent, why don't we all have dinner tonight on shore?
Oh, could you, Mr. Brent?
Yes, Princess, I think I could. But, we'll be docking soon. I have a lot of things to do.
And I'd better start my packing.
Maybe Chupin would like to watch the seagulls. See, they are just off the stern, hundreds of them.
But what are they doing?
Having dinner, my dear. The crew is throwing refuse food overboard. Come, let us go and watch.
Oh, please, Mrs. Grant.
Well, Chupin, all right, for a moment, maybe.
I rushed to find Hernando, that fire in the galley. Hernando's words confirmed what I was dreading.
The cartons are empty, senor. Empty during the fire.
Well, where did the stuff go? What about our men down there?
Well, there was too much smoke. They could not see.
Go back to the galley, Hernando. I'll see what our friends are up to. I went out on deck. I remember passing a lifeboat in a sudden instinctive mood to ward off the blow, but I wasn't fast enough. When I came to, I was lying in my cabin. The ship's doctor was there. So was Hernando. So was Anne Grant.
I'm sure you will be all right, Mr. Brand. Quite a bump, but if you take it easy...
You're not comfortable. Let me loosen your collar here.
I wouldn't worry that much about me, Mrs. Grant.
One of the crew was stowing some gear in a lifeboat. It slipped out of his hands just as you were passing by.
Careless of him, wasn't it?
Well, I will stop by later, Mr. Brand.
Are you sure you're all right?
Hadn't you better get back to your packing, Mrs. Grant?
Oh, I have plenty of time. Can't I help you?
Hernando can give me a hand. I'll see you later.
Yes. Yes, of course.
An accident?
No, I wasn't wanted up there, Hernando. What about the galley?
Still no trace of the drugs.
It's 5:25. I left Mrs. Grant in the lounge 20 minutes ago. She was going to pack. How did she get here? How did she learn about it?
I heard some of the passengers mention your accident when I started back from the galley. Suddenly the news was all over the ship. Look,
we're slowing down.
That means the pilot is coming aboard.
Let's get down to the galley. We all but tore that galley apart. No sign of the opium. The kitchen crew wasn't of much help. Half of them couldn't speak English or didn't want to. And then it dawned on me. That garbage that went over the stern. The fire starting just about that time. Brandstatter wanting to watch the seagulls. I tore back up the companionway to Mrs. Grant's cabin. As I reached the deck, Chupin called to me.
Mr. Brand. Oh, Mr. Brand.
Huh? Oh, well, what's the trouble, Chupin?
There is no trouble now, but when I couldn't find you, I was so afraid. You just disappeared. I've been all over the ship looking for you.
Well, now, isn't that funny? I was just trying to find you. I want you to do something for me, Princess. I'd like to talk to Anne alone, just for a few minutes.
You like her, don't you, Mr. Brand?
Yes, I do, very much. Mr. Brandstatter wanted my business address. I won't have time to look for him, so I wrote him a little note. While I'm with Anne, will you take that to his cabin?
Oh, I'll be glad to.
And don't forget, come right back here and wait for me. It was a short note. The seagulls didn't get everything, did they? But it was a nice try. I signed my real name, Barrows. I wanted to be in Mrs. Grant's cabin when Brandstatter read it.
Well, hello. Come on in. The cabin's the size.
I just wanted to tell you I won't be able to have dinner with you and Brandstatter tonight.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yes, isn't it? So many things I wanted to ask you.
Well, we'll all meet in San Francisco.
Oh, but some of this can't wait. For instance, about your past life.
My past life?
And your husband, yeah. Tell me about him.
Just like that?
Yes. Quite a love story, wasn't it? Or maybe it wasn't.
Not the last tear of it, no.
Really? You seemed so full of his memory in Shanghai, you were going to stay in China to finish his work.
His work was something else.
Oh, so you approved of that, huh? An engineer believes in building something. The point is, what? We don't at all want to build the same thing. The Japanese High Command, for instance, they want to build one kind of world, and I want to build another.
Meaning what?
Meaning your husband, Jerome Grant. Quite a coincidence, this snapshot, my picking it up in Egypt.
Where did you get it?
Where you played governess for Benda Shah's children. Where your husband was building better irrigation for better poppies. That was his work. Helping to make 1 billion slaves of the next generation. I just want the answer to one question from you. When you were back at the stern watching the seagulls, the opium went overboard with the garbage, didn't it? Didn't it? And if that's your pal, then I'll know for sure.
Shall I answer it?
Pick up the phone, just say one word, hello, and then give it to me.
Hello?
Mrs. Grant, this is Chupin.
It's Chupin.
Give it to me. Chupin?
I just couldn't wait, Mr. Brand. What did she say?
Oh, everything's going fine, Princess. You just wait right there, huh? That wasn't the one, Mrs. Grant.
Senor Barrows. Senor Barrows.
Come in, Hernando.
Brandstatter, you'd better come, senor.
Stay here, Hernando. Watch her.
His cabin, senor. Hurry.
Suicide. The third fanatic who paid for failure. But Brandstatter's death told me many things I wanted to know. While the ship's captain was fixing the approximate spot where the opium had been thrown overboard, I was talking by radio to the Coast Guard. I asked for boats to meet the Cardio as fast as they could get to us.
Here's a chart of where the stuff went overboard, Mr. Barrows. Within half a mile, anyway. $1 million in opium at the bottom of the ocean.
But not for long, Captain. This stunt isn't exactly new. The opium will be in waterproof wrappings and attached to floats. They'll be anchored on ropes, chemically treated. The salt water will gradually eat away the ropes, and the floats will bring the drugs to the surface.
And you'll be there to pick it up.
Yeah, unless somebody else beats us to it.
I'd better stand by, Mr. Barrows. Those launches will be alongside in no time.
sent 3 launches. I took Anne Grant with me and Chupin. She wouldn't be separated from her, so I let her have a way. It was 10 or 12 miles back to the spot, and the question was, would we make it in time? The ropes might have broken already, the stuff picked up, and the rest of the Gene Hawk's...
Motorboat ahead, Mr. Barrows. They're fishing something up out of the water.
Well, don't let them get away. I want them alive. But if you've got to shoot...
Sounds like they're starting us, sir. Watch it, ladies. Here we go.
It was our 3 boats against their 1. They might have made a run for it, but they tried to save the opium. A few minutes later, they surrendered. But these were workmen, not leaders. Where was Gene Hawkes? I looked at the girl in my launch, and I had the answer. The prisoners went aboard the other boats. I took the narcotics, and with Mrs. Grant and Chupin, we cut away from the others and headed directly for customs. There were 2 Coast Guardsmen handling the launch. Their backs were to us when suddenly...
Chupin! No! Get back!
What's the idea, Princess? Put the gun down.
Tell him to make for a point a mile above Conover Beacon.
She grabbed his gun. That's Sailor's gun.
Did you hear what I said?
Better head for shore, boys, a mile above Conover Beacon.
That's an order, sir.
It's an order. Never heard of Gene Hawkes, Mrs. Grant?
Gene Hawkes?
The name that took those narcotics around the world? Never heard of it, huh?
No.
Amazing. Could be our baby-faced princess here.
I am 20 years old.
The Chinese girl for the honor and glory of Japan.
Tell him to go faster.
The lady says to speed up, Skipper. Well, what are you going to do? Get this stuff ashore, then what? You'll have to kill the 4 of us, won't you?
But that's insane.
Is it?
Gene Hawkes would do it without batting an eye. And you had no idea, Mrs. Grant.
No.
Didn't even know your husband was hired by Japan to grow narcotics. And that you've been chaperoning Gene Hawkes ever since Pan Yin. You, the respectable widow of an American killed by Japanese bombs, didn't know that, huh?
No.
Or maybe that isn't how he died at all. Maybe he knew too much and wasn't the fanatic he should have been.
He wasn't, wife.
You murdered him.
No, you did, with notions of helping China and asking questions. He was told to get rid of you.
But he couldn't bring himself to do it, huh? Still had a little feeling for his wife. That weakness licked him, didn't it? That's the weakness that licked me, too. The feeling I had for a helpless little girl. Oh, I was a sucker for that, wasn't I? Your side trades in that kind of thing. Decent human feeling. No use for it yourself except to fake it. But I've been learning fast, Princess, and I learned that lesson just in time. In fact, I had an idea who you were when you got in this boat.
Stop lying.
You see, after the accident, Mrs. Grant was standing by my bed. But not the warm little girl who liked me so much. Where was she? At the stern, watching seagulls. She must have heard about it the same time Mrs. Grant did. What made her so late in coming to find me? And how those lines of suffering in an artist's sketch of a young girl could be the madness of a grown woman. But I wasn't sure yet. So the next step was that note to Brandstetter. When he didn't call Mrs. Grant, when he killed himself, that could mean you opened the note on the way, told Brandstetter he'd failed and that his services were no longer required. See what I mean, Princess? You can't fake real feelings, not for long. They're the exclusive property of real human beings. Now put on that gun.
Come and take it, Mr. Brent.
Yes. Yes, I will.
No, don't. She'll kill you. She'll kill you.
Keep pulling the trigger, Princess. Not loaded? Oh, what a shame.
What do you know, Mr. Barrows? Your stunt worked.
Yeah, what do you know? Poor little Gene Hawkes. Not even one bullet left to kill herself with. Tie her up, boys. That's how and where the trail ended, in outer New York Harbor off Conover Beacon. And that's where another trail began, you might say, because now, back in Frisco, I don't have to worry about my roses getting watered. Anne does it, like any normal wife should. All in all, it's like my boss Anslinger said today at Lake Success at a meeting of the World's Narcotic Commission of the United Nations.
By this time, I hope we have learned the deeper lesson that no boundaries between people are as important as the simple, common, lasting bond of belonging to the human race.
Before our stars return for their curtain calls, here's a sensational bargain for homemakers. The amazing new Regal aluminum saucepan.
A guaranteed $2 value, now only $1 in the famous Lever Brothers Company Buy Two sale. It's the biggest improvement in saucepans in years.
Just listen to this. You can drain hot water from food without removing the cover. Just shift the position of the cover and pour off the liquid through tiny holes in the side of the pan.
You can't scald your hands or spill food. An indicator tells you at a glance the proper position of the cover for cooking or draining.
This self-drain saucepan is a full 2-quart size and made of gleaming heavy-gauge aluminum. The bakelite handle resists heat and won't twist or turn.
What a value. Only $1 in Lever Brothers Company Buy Two sale if you order it right away.
Here's all you do. Buy 2 boxes of Lux Flakes. Get a free order blank at your store, or send your name and address and the tops from 2 boxes of Lux Flakes plus $1 to Lever Homemakers Club, Box 27, New York 8, New York.
That's Lever Homemakers Club, Box 27, New York 8, New York. You'll receive your saucepan promptly and postpaid, but hurry. This offer expires July 1st and is good only in the United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
Here's Mr. Keeley with our stars.
After covering a good part of the world in tonight's play, here are Dick Powell and Signe Hassel back for the curtain call they certainly earned.
Thanks a lot, Bill. I'd like to thank Signe for postponing her New York trip so she could be with us tonight.
Are you vacationing on Broadway, Signe?
No, nothing like that, Mr. Keeley. I'm going east to rehearse for the play Love for a Stranger, and then I'm going to tour in summer stock with it.
Then I guess you'll be traveling most of the summer.
Yes, and I packed my trunks this morning, and I think you may be interested to know that one thing I always put in is an emergency supply of Lux Flakes. I wouldn't be without them.
Well, good luck with your tour. Dick, I hear you've joined the Northwest Royal Mounted Police for your newest picture.
That's right, Bill. This is our second production with our own company.
The story is the bestseller Mrs. Mike, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And who plays Mrs. Mike?
Well, Evelyn Keyes, and she's doing a wonderful job.
Any location trips?
Well, we had one trip to Sun Valley. It's been so cold here lately, though, we could have shot it in Hollywood Boulevard. Later on, we'll go to the High Sierras for summer scenes.
What play are you producing here next week, Mr. Keeley?
One of the most unusual dramas the screen has given us in recent years is the 20th Century Fox hit, Anna and the King of Siam. And repeating one of her greatest screen performances, we'll have Irene Dunn. Her co-star, a fine artist you've all been waiting to hear, James Mason. I know everyone in this audience will be back next week to hear the exciting story of Anna and the King of Siam.
You'll have another hit, Bill. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, and thank you. Lever Brothers Company, the makers of Lux Flakes, join me in inviting you to be with us again next Monday evening when the Lux Radio Theater presents Irene Dunn and James Mason in Anna and the King of Siam. This is William Keeley saying good night to you from Hollywood.
Our play was adapted by S.H. Barnett, and our music was directed by Louis Silvers. This is your announcer, John Milton Kennedy, reminding you to join us again next Monday night to hear Anna and the King of Siam, starring Irene Dunn and James Mason. The generous new bath-size Lux toilet soap is making a hit with screen stars, with lovely women everywhere. Try this big satin smooth cake. You'll enjoy its abundant creamy lather, the delicate flower-like fragrance it leaves on your skin. The new bath-size Lux toilet soap is another fine product of Lever Brothers Company. Be sure to listen next Monday night to the Lux Radio Theater presentation of Anna and the King of Siam, starring Irene Dunn and James Mason. Stay tuned for My Friend Irma, which follows over these same stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. A very powerful story. This makes me want to see the film version of this. It's too bad this is not actually available on DVD. But if you've got Turner Classic Movies or one of the classic movie channels, watch for this. One thing I found particularly interesting in the plot was the idea of opium as a tool for extremists, and not just a fundraising source, but also a way to wage war on the minds and will of the American people. And this idea actually does hold true up to the present day, and some of the recent terrorists, including Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, which was very big into heroin smuggling. So this is one of those radio episodes that kind of makes you realize, maybe things haven't changed so much in 60 years in some regards. Well, that'll do it for this special episode. I hope you enjoyed it. This was just an absolutely thrilling mystery and a pleasure to listen to and a pleasure to bring to you. We will be back on Monday with Barrie Craig, and Dick Powell will be up again for you on Tuesday in Rogues Gallery. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and give us a call, 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.